And so, beginning today, the Graymore Friars will present for you a series of 8 weekly dramas, each program complete in itself, and all based on the 8 Beatitudes of our blessed Lord's Sermon on the Mount. These will be stories of today, all taking place in a community which we shall call Hanover City. Listen, then, to our first story, the story of the first Beatitude. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Hanover City is a small community of 20,000 or so people. There are 3 fairly large factories and a number of smaller ones, as well as the usual shops. And outside the city, there are pleasant, prosperous farmlands. 2 of the men who know Hanover City best are Father George Morgan, pastor of the Church of St. Francis of Assisi, and his friend, Captain Frank Drakely, the retired chief of police. Only the other day I was talking with Captain Drakely and asking him what he thought of people in general.
People? What do you mean?
Well, I mean this, Captain. As a police officer, you have seen a lot of sordidness in your time, a lot of crime. Does that ever give you a sort of cynical opinion of human nature?
Mister, do you know the population of Hanover City?
Well, I should say about 20,000.
Right. And do you know the number of men on the police force?
No, I don't think I do.
23. If the majority of those 20,000 people were criminals, do you think a police force of 23 would be able to handle them?
I think I see what you mean, Captain.
Of course you do. The majority of people are all right. All the men may not be geniuses, all the women may not be beauties, but most of them are all right.
That was Captain Drakely's opinion. Then later the same day, chatting with him in his rectory, I asked Father Morgan for his opinion.
Captain Drakely is right. Don't forget that Jesus Christ thought that people were all right. He didn't think they were sinless, but he did think they were worth dying for.
Oh, I know that, Father, but, well, listening to people's sins and confession, don't you sometimes get depressed about human nature in general?
Depressed, yes. Despairing? No, never. I never despair for human nature because I know what it can do when it travels on the beam of God's grace. When it does that, it can really fly. It can fly all the way up to the moon and the stars. I've seen it happen more than once right here in Hanover City. Take Frank Drakely himself, the good captain. Let me tell you about something he was involved in only a short time ago.
Oh, go right ahead, Father. It started one morning in the home of Mr. and Mrs. Joe Davis. Joe Davis, an all-around handyman, but mainly a house painter, has gone off to work. The children are outside playing in the warm sunshine. And Mrs. Davis, a pleasant-looking lady of 40, is in the kitchen, drying the breakfast dishes. The doorbell rings, and Mrs. Davis goes to answer it.
Oh, Mrs. Staley, good morning.
Through the screen door of the porch, Mrs. Davis sees Mrs. Staley, a neighbor. Mrs. Staley, who's rather good-looking, is about 28.
I don't know whether it's a good morning or not, Mrs. Davis.
Well, come in, Mrs. Staley. Come in. You look worried. Is there anything I can do?
Oh, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, here, Mrs. Staley. Come on in the living room. Sit down. Here in this chair.
Thank you.
Well, now tell me, what's the matter?
Mrs. Davis, could you...
Well, yes. What is it, Mrs. Staley?
Well, could you let me have some money? Oh, I need it. I need it badly.
You do?
It's Mr. Westover. He's coming back at 12 o'clock. He's the real estate man, you know.
Well, yes, he's ours, too. A lovely man.
Oh, he's all right, I suppose, but we owe him 4 months' payment on the house, and he says if we don't pay, the owner will go to court this afternoon and sign something to have us put out.
Put out?
Oh, it's awful, Mrs. Davis. The life my husband and I are leading.
Why, I thought...
Oh, we managed to look respectable, I suppose, but we haven't a single happy moment. He just can't make money. He tries, but... Oh, I don't know. He will make it one of these days, I guess, but... Oh, Mrs. Davis, will you help me? Will you?
I'd like to, Mrs. Staley. I'd really like to. Losing your home, why, that's terrible.
I feel like dying.
No, you don't.
I do, Mrs. Davis, I do. What good is life anyhow? You marry a man, you trust him to take care of you, and look what happens.
Mr. Staley's a nice, serious young man. I'm sure he's doing his best for you.
Oh, he is, but what good is it doing me? What good is it doing him? He's just as miserable as I am.
Practically all young married couples have their troubles.
Lots of young married couples have fun, too.
And you'll have yours.
You want to help me, don't you?
Yes, I do. How much are your monthly payments?
$45.
The Christian thing. Look, without any further interruptions, let's go on with the story. It's a story not only about poverty of spirit, but about people. Let's see what happened to them.
Well, it seems that the night after Mr. and Mrs. Joe Davis helped Mrs. Staley, Leo Staley comes home.
Hello, Leo.
Hello.
You had your dinner?
Yeah.
Can I get you a cup of coffee?
No, thanks.
Did you have a successful trip?
No.
I thought not. You always come home with that beaten look on your face.
It probably looks more beaten when I look for a smile on your face and never see one.
What a happy homecoming.
This isn't a home. It's only a house. Look, the only thing that's ever on your mind or mine is money. It's all my fault, I admit it, and I'm sorry about it. I apologize. Anyhow, let's go over the money situation, then I gotta go to bed. I'm dog-tired. Oh, am I tired? Anyhow, here's the list of bills. Payments on the piano, $30. Payments on the dining room set, $32. That store where you bought those coats and hats.
It's not that I didn't need them.
$110. Gas and electricity, $11. 2 payments on the house.
You mean 4 payments?
You'll have to scrape along with 2. We've done it before. That's $90. A total of $273. For which, as the result of 3 weeks' work, I have $200 in my pocket. Congratulate me as usual, dear. Good night. I'm going to bed.
Wait. Leo.
What is it?
Yesterday, Mr. Westover, the real estate agent, came here, and he said...
Oh, I know what he said. He said it before. Don't bother me about it tonight. I'll see him in the morning and talk him into being satisfied with 2 payments. I know we owe him 4.
We don't owe him any. We owe them all to Mr. and Mrs. Davis.
What are you talking about?
Mr. Westover said if I didn't pay him by noon yesterday, the owner would...
The owner? Where the owner?
I mean the holder of the mortgage, the real owner, if we don't keep paying him, would take action to have us put out. So I borrowed the money from the Davises.
You mean the Joe Davis?
Yes.
Mildred, you didn't.
I had to do something. I was desperate.
What? That's humiliating.
I said I was desperate. And whose fault is that?
The Davises have 4 children. They haven't any more money than we have.
They had enough to help us pay for our home. Or for our house, as you call it.
It's a house because you haven't made it a home.
What do you mean?
Look at the Davises. They have 4 children. We don't even have a cat or a dog or a canary. There's no life in the place. Good night.
And there's no money in the place, Leo Staley. No money either.
The next evening, Leo Staley calls at the Davises.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Staley. Do come in.
Thank you. I came to see you and Joe, Mrs. Davis.
Well, Joe's over at Captain Drakely's on business, I think. I don't know when he'll be back. Won't you sit down?
No, thanks. I just stopped by to thank you, Mrs. Davis. You and Joe. Will you tell him I stopped by?
Well, Joe and I don't want any formalities about it, Mr. Staley.
I'll pay you back just as soon as I can.
Don't worry about it.
It isn't fair, Mrs. Davis. I'm sorry it happened. You have 4 children.
Now, don't you worry about it. We just hope that, we just hope that you and Mrs. Staley will be happy. My, she's a good-looking girl, that wife of yours.
Yeah. She ought to have a better provider for a husband.
Oh, you'll get there, Mr. Staley.
Well, thanks, Mrs. Davis. God bless you. You and Joe.
At first, though. I'll bet you were. Mine hasn't been hot. Well, sit down, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. I won't keep you long. I see you're looking over road maps.
Oh, we're thinking of taking a little trip with some friends, the Hamiltons, you know.
Oh, yeah, a wonderful couple, aren't they?
They don't come any nicer.
Yeah, what I came to see you about was your house here. You know, I was wondering if you might like to have it painted.
Well, Joe, frankly, we were thinking about it. It needs it, doesn't it? We were thinking maybe sometime in the early autumn. And, of course, we were thinking of you to do it.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Oh, I appreciate a good painter.
I'll give you something extra special, Captain.
Oh, go on with you. That's what you tell everybody.
No, really. If you let me do it now, I'll give you... I'll give you the works.
Now? Oh, why now? Aren't you busy, Joe?
Oh, I'm quite busy, Captain. I'd like you to let me do your house in the evenings, you see. Cost of living's pretty high, Captain, and, I've got 4 children.
Yeah.
I need all the work I can get.
Sure.
Now, I wouldn't put it to you this way if you weren't sure that I'd give you a good job, but, that's how it is, Captain. I need the money.
You must need the money if you're willing to work at night.
Well, daylight saving will give me 2 hours every evening, Captain, and I'll paint here all day Saturdays, too.
Well, how much, Joe?
$300.
Well, that's a very reasonable price for a house the size of this.
But, Frank...
Bessie, the place certainly needs it.
Yes, Frank, but what about...
No, I'll tell you just go ahead, Joe. When do you want to start?
Well, would tomorrow evening be all right?
Sooner the better, Joe, before it gets too hot for you.
Joe, I'm glad you're going to do it, but wouldn't the autumn be better for you?
Well, I'd really appreciate it if I could do it now, Mrs. Drakely.
Whatever you wish, Joe.
Joe has gone. The evening is almost darkened on the Drakely's porch. And quietly, not saying much, the Drakeleys are rocking in their chairs.
Would you like me to fix you a glass of ginger ale, Frank?
Well, thanks, Bessie. Yes, I'd enjoy a glass of ginger ale.
Much later that same night, Leo Staley comes up the steps of his porch.
Leo.
Oh, I didn't see you there in the dark.
I've been frightened. I was afraid you weren't coming back.
Don't let the neighbors hear you. Let's go inside. You know that shop Jack Myers has a chance to buy?
Yes.
He'll take me in as a partner if I can put $1,000 in it.
There's always a catch.
Well, he's putting 1,000 in himself. Why shouldn't I? It'd be a cheap investment. I could make 5,000 or 6,000 a year out of it, maybe more.
Where are you ever going to get $1,000?
I just tried to talk my Uncle Hen into lending it to me.
Oh, so that's where you were. No luck, of course.
No luck.
Oh, what's the matter with people anyway? All they want to do is hold on to their money and not see anybody else make any.
Yeah, some people are like that. But don't forget the Joe Davises.
Yes, the Joe Davises. I'll never forgive you for forcing me to beg from them.
Mildred, I'm sorry about everything. I've made everything rotten for you. I know, rotten. But I'll get you out of it. I'm a worker.
Yes, you're that all right. And all work and no play makes Leo a dull boy.
Oh, gosh.
And that's all you can do, stand there and say, gosh. Why don't you talk back at me or something? Why don't you slap me in the face?
Mildred, you're nervous and upset. I'm sorry, and we're going to make out. I'm just going to keep plugging away.
Well, good luck to you, Leo. I'm as sorry for you as I am for myself.
The hot summer days pass. And one evening while painting at the Drakely's house, Joe Davis, after painting all day at the high school, Joe Davis, high up on his ladder, gets dizzy, falls off, breaks his arm, and is taken to the hospital. The next evening, in a restaurant where Leo and Mildred Staley are eating dinner,
I called on Captain Drakely this afternoon.
Did you sell him any window insulation?
We didn't discuss window insulation.
No.
No. I made an arrangement with him, Mildred.
An arrangement?
Yeah. I'm going to take up where Joe Davis left off. Or fell off, the poor fellow.
What do you mean?
I'm going to finish painting that house for him.
How can you do that in your own work, too?
For 5 or 6 days, I'm not going to do my own work. My guess is that Joe was painting that house to make up for the money we borrowed from him. Well, I'm going to pay him back by finishing the job for him. He needs the money now more than ever. He won't have any income for weeks. Mrs. Davis, I hear, is going to take up practical nursing to tide them over. She's having a high school girl in to look after the house and the children.
And you're going to take 5 or 6 days off to help the Davises out.
Well, we owe it to them. And now's the time they need it.
May I ask how, in the meantime, you're going to help Leo and Mildred Staley out?
We have $40 in cash. That'll tide us over.
$40 we owe all over the place.
We'll manage somehow. We're still young. Younger than the Joe Davises.
Leo, I'll give you 1 more month.
What?
I don't mean to pay off all our debts. That wouldn't be fair to you.
Oh.
I mean, well, I'm leaving you in a month.
Leaving me?
I'll give you 1 more month to find a way to pay our debts off. 1 month to find a sort of beginning of next winter.
My old coat's still neat, and it's plenty warm enough.
Well, there's one thing warmer than my old coat, Frank.
What's that, my dear?
My husband's heart.
blessed are the poor in spirit, the people who value money and material things sensibly, but who value certain other things, spiritual things, far more. For theirs, even on this earth, theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Look here, mister.
Yes, Captain Drakely.
If Father Morgan is going around telling tales like that about me...
Tales, Frank? It's the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
No, you just stay out of this, Father. Anyhow, mister, let me tell you a tale next week about Father Morgan here. How does it go? Yes. Blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the land. It's a tale with a bit of fun in it, too. All about my proud son, George, and the meek Father Morgan.
Captain, I'm sure we'll all be looking forward to next week. The second Beatitude, blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the land. Here is Captain Frank Drakely, the retired chief of police of Hanover City.
I said last week I was going to tell you a story about the meek Father Morgan, our pastor here, and my proud son George. George is a nice boy. I like him. I think I'd like him even if he weren't my own son. He has a lot of attractive qualities. The only trouble about George was around about the time he went to college, then to law school.
My father? What does my father do? Oh, he's superintendent of police of Hanover City.
George, you see, used to talk like that at law school. My title was chief of police. But when he was away at college and law school, George always described me as superintendent of police. I suppose he felt that made both Hanover City and me sound bigger than we really were. Yes, George was a nice boy. He even admired his own father in a broad-minded sort of way. It made me feel queer at times to be admired in just that way by my own son. But I really didn't mind. Youth has to have its fling, and George's particular fling could have been worse than it was. It could have been drink. It could have been gambling. It could have been bad company, giddy girls. But the few girls George ever associated with were, well, young intellectuals. Young people like himself, terribly keen on books, and also terribly keen on wanting you to know that they were keen on books.
As far as I can see, there are lots of girls who are pretty. Well, what of it? Girls don't interest me very much anyhow. The only ones I give any of my time to are the brainy ones. Not that there are too many of those. You talk about books or music or politics or law to the average girl, she thinks you don't have any life in you. Well, I don't care what they think. I have intellectual life in me, and I'm satisfied with it.
Well, that was George in his college and law school days. Although, like so many of those fellows in that university club, he had a certain amount of shrewdness. He knew that if he wanted to get ahead as a lawyer in Hanover City, he had to make an impression on men. And so he used to hang around the Lions Club and Rotary. And one time, when he was home from law school on a visit, he even made a speech at Rotary.
Gentlemen, you know, and I know, that for success in business life and success in personal life, a man has to have a background of years. He has to have seasoning. I do not have that background. I do not have that seasoning as you gentlemen have. All I am here for today, at your generous invitation, is to convey to you, with what I hope is in all due modesty, the hopes, the ambitions, the plans of Hanover City's younger generation, the Rotarians of the future.
Yes, George made a pretty speech that day, and he made an impression. And he knew he made an impression. But he didn't know that his father arranged for him to give that speech. But no matter. The boy did a good job, and, well, I was rather pleased with him. Then he graduated from law school, passed his state bar examinations, and came home to settle down. And one of the first things he did was to call on our pastor, Father Morgan.
Yes, Father, I'm glad to be back in Hanover City.
Well, now, a Catholic college education and the State University Law School, that's a good education, George.
Father, I'm not forgetting my days here either, in the parish grammar school and high school.
It's nice of you to say so, George.
Oh, I don't take any personal credit for it, Father. It's just, I suppose, because I have a good father and a good mother.
My dear boy, you have indeed. A wonderful father. A wonderful mother.
Thanks, Father. Well, it's been good seeing you again.
It's good of you to drop in. Do it as often as you can, huh?
Well, I don't know if that'll be often, Father. I expect to be pretty busy now. I've been taken on at Mr. Roper's office, you know.
That's fine. The best law office in the county.
Well, it's really the best in the whole southern part of the state.
Yes, I suppose it is. Oh, that's fine, George. That's fine. The best of luck to you.
Thank you, Father.
George.
Yes?
I know you intend to go to Mass and the sacraments regularly, But I wonder about the Holy Name Society. I do wish you'd take an interest in that, George.
Well, I'll think it over, Father. I'll think it over.
Good boy. Good boy.
That evening, alone in his room, surrounded by his books and trophies of college and law school days, George is looking at the different pictures of himself in his college and law school yearbooks. And while he's looking at these pictures of himself, he's thinking,
The Holy Name Society. Oh, I don't know. Mass on Sundays and holy days, that's different. I believe in my religion. I intend to do my duty by it. But parish activity...
Doesn't appeal to you?
Oh, Father, people can get their entertainment at the movies or on television or radio.
But at our entertainments here, George, we don't just sit back. We all take part in them.
I know, Father, but... Well, I'd like to see our entertainments just a little more intellectual.
I see, George. I appreciate your interest. I'll think it over.
driving home that night in the family car.
Well, how did you make out with Father Morgan?
Oh, I don't know.
What do you mean?
Oh, he was polite, as usual. But, Dad, I'm not sure that he even knew what I was talking about.
What in heaven's name do you mean by that?
Dad, when I talked about Father Walter Farrell's set of 4 books, well, it's famous, A Companion to the Summa, it's called, Father Morgan simply looked blank. None of that for me, Dad. That isn't what you paid good money for when you educated me. Hey, what happened? I didn't see that fellow pull over there.
Well, George, let's get out and see what's what.
Yeah.
I think he's more damaged than we are. His whole trunk rack is smashed in. Well, this is nice. Me, a former chief of police, and smashing another fellow's car.
Gosh, Dad, I'm sorry.
Well, let's go over and see if we can soothe the man's feelings.
The next morning, Captain Drakely calls Father Morgan on the telephone.
Father, I'd like you to do 2 things for me when you have the chance.
Yes, Frank?
First, next time my son George calls on you, don't talk with him in the reception room downstairs, but invite him up to your own sitting room. Will you please?
Why, I'll be glad to, Frank.
Don't ask me why just now. I think I hear him coming downstairs. I'll tell you when I see you.
Anything you say, Frank.
And another thing, Father. If you have the chance, tell him something about Fred Mueller, will you?
Yes. Yes, I will.
Thanks a lot for everything.
A couple of weeks pass, and George hasn't yet called on Father Morgan. Outside church after Mass one Sunday, George meets Fred Mueller and Fred's sister, Agnes.
Oh, good morning, Fred. Hello, George. George, I'd like you to meet my sister, Agnes.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Mueller. Oh, yes, we went to high school together, didn't we?
I think you graduated when I was a sophomore.
Yes, I thought I remembered you.
Excuse me just a minute. Father Sweeney there wants to see me.
I'll wait for you, Fred.
Fred's Johnny on the spot, isn't he?
He's always up to something, isn't he? I think this time the ladies of the Sodality are after him. They want him to supervise the games at their party.
Oh? What party is that?
Their annual card party. You're coming, aren't you?
Well, I'm afraid I haven't thought about it.
Oh, you'll be there. Your mother and father always come.
Oh, it was hopeless. Here was a pretty girl, a really pretty girl, and all she could talk about was parish affairs. They were all she was interested in. One look at her, and a man had hopes. 1 minute of talk with her, and his hopes were dashed. Talk about books with a girl like that? Talk about the visit to Hanover City next week of the Philharmonic Orchestra from the state capital. Talk about the university club and the country club. It was hopeless. Girls like that were sunk, submerged, frustrated in the petty details of the parish party.
Did I see you talking outside church with Agnes Mueller?
Yes, Dad.
Good-looking girl. And as good as she's good-looking. Oh, have another cup of coffee.
Thanks, I think I will.
I don't make it so badly, do I?
You make it very well, Dad.
Oh, it's better than Mother's.
Where is Mother?
After Mass, she and the committee were having a meeting in the rectory.
The card party committee, I suppose.
She's always involved in it.
Mother and Fred Mueller and all the other ladies.
Fred Mueller and all the other ladies?
The way Fred hops whenever they ask him to do anything reminds me of a sweet old maid who is so anxious to please.
George,
Yeah?
if your boss, Dick Roper, asked you to work with him on the community chess drive, you do it. You do it out of fear, just in order to make sure of your job. If Fred Mueller hops when they ask him to do some simple little thing around the parish, he does it voluntarily, cheerfully. And he wouldn't lose a thing if he said no.
Oh, I'll answer, Dad. Hello? Oh, yes, Father. Yes? Why, of course. Tonight at 7:30? All right. Thank you for calling, Father. Father Morgan. He'd like to see me tonight at 7:30. Wants to talk over that discussion club idea I suggested to him.
That night, around 10 o'clock, George comes home.
Well, Dad, it was quite an experience. Quite an experience.
Is that so?
First of all, after I got there, I was ushered upstairs into Father Morgan's personal sitting room.
What are you whistling about?
You know what, Dad? That room had at least 3,000 books in it.
I know. I've been up there.
I remarked on them to Father Morgan, and we talked about them for a while, and well, I could tell he had read all of them. Say, you know that set of books I talked about, A Companion to the Summa? Well, he's read that twice. All 4 volumes.
George, Father Morgan's a great reader. And here's something else. For a man his age, he's also a wonderful handball player.
Really?
Oh, beats me all the time.
You know, Dad, I talk too much. Me with my 300 books and Father Morgan with 3,000.
What did he have to say about your discussion club idea?
Well, he likes the idea of an occasional serious discussion, but not as a steady diet.
Hello, Father Morgan speaking. Oh, yes, Frank.
Miss, you and Fred are interesting people.
As for you, Mr. Drakely, you've been wonderful with the booklet. Why, it's all finished. Look, why don't you go up with Fred? I'll finish the sandwiches and coffee and bring them up.
George, I want to thank you for helping with the program booklet. It's a beautiful piece of work.
Thank Agnes and Fred Mueller, Father. It was their brainchild.
Brains is the word for the Muellers, isn't it?
Yes. But what impresses me about them is that they're so modest about themselves.
Blessed are the meek, George. People like the Muellers don't brag about themselves, and they don't complain about their troubles.
Troubles? Oh. You mean Fred's health?
Yes, and a couple of other things. Agnes and Fred have been orphaned since their early teens. And Agnes, well, during the war, she was engaged to a fine young officer in the army. He was killed in Normandy the day after D-Day. Yes, the young Muellers are real people, George, but you don't hear them saying so. They take life as it comes, face it as best they can. They don't boast. They don't complain. And they're beginning to receive their reward already. They're beginning to possess the land. They're loved, the Muellers are. Loved.
Love, Father?
Yes, George. They're loved by everyone.
Loved. Say, that's given me an idea. Yeah, the best idea I've ever had in my life. Agnes Mueller. Agnes Mueller Drakely.
The third Beatitude. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Father Morgan's parish of St. Francis of Assisi in Hanover City extends out into the countryside. It is a countryside of middling to prosperous truck and dairy farms. And of them all, the most prosperous belongs to Nat Gordon. Nat Gordon, as the expression goes, is a strong, silent man, a widower. Something of a mystery even to his only child, Amy, a beautiful young woman of 22. On this particular afternoon, on the porch of the large, comfortable Gordon farmhouse, Amy drifts into talking about her father with Jack Adams, the son of a neighboring farmer.
Amy, do you think if
What, Jack?
If I asked you to marry me, your father would approve of me?
Jack, are you asking me to marry you?
Oh, I've been asking you in my mind for the last year. I love you, Amy.
Oh, you're making me feel wonderful, Jack. Happy, terribly happy.
But how do you think your father will like the idea?
Oh, I don't know.
He's known me ever since I was born. He's known my father and mother all their lives, but not one of us knows what he thinks of us.
Jackie's my own father, but I don't even know what he thinks of me.
He's a strange man, isn't he?
He never said an unkind word to me in my life, but he's never said a kind one either. I have a feeling that someday he'll turn against me. He'll strike me or say something ugly to me.
Oh, Amy.
Not a very nice feeling to have about one's father, is it?
Oh, he's known he was, well, strange, but, well, Amy, he's not like that.
Yes, he is. I can't prove it, Jack, but I know it.
Well, never mind. Let's not talk about it today, Amy.
Well, it was you who brought my father up.
All right. Come on. Let's go on from here as if I didn't.
Don't touch me, Jack.
Amy, come back here. Oh, look here, Amy. Don't you run away from me.
Oh, Jack, hold me tight. I love you, Jack. I love you.
Oh, Amy.
Hold me tighter. Squeeze all the crazy fears out of me.
That night, at dinner, Amy is sitting at table with her father. 5 minutes have passed without a word between them. Then...
Oh.
Huh? What'd you say?
All I said was, oh.
Any reason you care to talk about?
I was being angry with myself. For being afraid to tell you something.
What?
I'm going to marry Jack Adams.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I think it's rather nice.
I'm glad you think so.
Don't you think so?
What difference does it make what I think? He's your choice.
Well, I'd like him to be yours, too, Daddy.
As far as he goes, Jack's all right. But if you want my personal opinion, he doesn't go very far.
Well, what do you mean?
He's going to inherit a first-class farm. What interest does he take in it? What interest does he take in anything?
Oh, well, with responsibilities with a wife and children.
If a man doesn't have an interest in money, naturally a wife and children are going to give it to him.
There are other things besides money.
You can afford to talk like that, and so can Jack.
Daddy.
He'll go through his father's money and my money after I die, and then where will you be? You and your children. Oh, well, he's your choice. Let people do what they want to do. That's my attitude. I do what I want. Why shouldn't you? Good luck, Amy. Nice dinner, as usual. A good cook.
But, Daddy...
Yes?
Would you want Jack to call on you and talk things over?
No. Settle things between yourselves. If you want to live on this property, I'll build a house for you. If the Adamses want to build a place for you on theirs, let them go ahead. Any money they spend on the two of you, I'll double it. Settle all that sort of thing between yourselves.
All right, Daddy. The wedding.
I'll agree to anything you settle on. A quiet one, a loud one. Anything you want. Good night. Going into town. So he's leaving it all up to us then?
Mm-hmm. Money and not being bothered are the only things he cares for.
Well, as long as we care for each other, that's all that matters, isn't it, Amy?
Yes. Yes, Jack.
What did he say about me personally?
Oh, he thinks you're all right.
Well, Amy, I know I'm not perfect.
I think you're wonderful.
Oh, you kind of swell yourself.
Jack, you're squeezing the breath out of... Jack, you're hurting me.
I'm sorry.
If you want me to survive until our wedding day...
By the way, where's it going to be?
You mean the church?
Uh-huh. Your church, I suppose.
Oh, I suppose, Jack.
Oh, it's okay by me. I don't have any church.
Well, I thought maybe you had in mind your parents' Lutheran church.
Means nothing to me one way or the other. I'm not a Lutheran. I'm not anything. All I believe in is what I see. And as long as what I see is you...
Oh, dear Jack.
Oh, you're beautiful, Amy.
I feel beautiful.
Amy.
That's it. Just hold me gently and tenderly. What are you dreaming about, Jack?
Our wedding. And you didn't answer my question. Where's it going to be?
Oh.
St. Francis of, what's it called?
Assisi, St. Francis of Assisi.
Yeah. Is that where it'll be?
Oh, well, I don't know yet. We don't have to settle everything the very day you propose to me, do we?
Oh, certainly not. Personally, just now, all I feel like doing is having a bit of fun.
So do I.
Swell.
I feel like sitting in back of you on a
motorcycle?
No, a rocket, and my arms around you and the two of us shooting up to the moon.
Oh, wait a minute.
Hmm?
I have an idea. Let's go to Jimmy's.
Jimmy's?
Yeah, you know, that place out on Route 25.
Oh.
Well, why so enthusiastic?
Oh, I went there once with Bob Stauffer, and I didn't like it.
Oh, maybe that was because you didn't like Bob.
No, Bob's all right. I just didn't like Jimmy's. It's a gaudy, noisy nightclub.
Oh, come on, Amy. It'll be fun.
Perhaps Amy feels if she looks at Jimmy's nightclub and listens to it through the eyes and the ears of the man she loves, perhaps she'll find it tolerable, even enjoyable. And so with Jack, she goes there.
Boy, can those three babies dance? Look at them.
Jack.
Look at them, will you?
Jack.
Huh?
Let's go now, Jack, shall we?
What?
Let's just take a ride along the highway. It's a beautiful night outside.
Oh, Amy, I'm having fun here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack, but I'm not.
Oh, but I am.
Yes, I know. Won't you take me home now?
Home? Well, I thought it was going to be a ride along the highway through the beautiful night.
Jack, you've been drinking too much.
Well, if you'd only drink something stronger than ginger ale, maybe we'd both be having a good time.
Why are you talking to me like that?
Huh?
I'm Amy. Amy Gordon. You're Amy. Remember, Jack?
Oh, come on, Amy. Now join me in a drink, huh? Forget your troubles. Forget everything. That's the only way to have fun.
I don't know about that, Jack.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful long face. Come on, Amy. Don't be so religious.
Religious? I haven't gone to church for more than a year.
You're religious, though. It's your only fault.
Jack, will you please take me home?
Okay, Amy. I'll do that little thing. After I do, I'm coming right back here. Came here to have fun, and believe you me, I'm going to have it.
Thanks, Jack.
It's okay.
You're not even angry with me. You just don't care one way or the other. You remind me of my father.
Thanks for the compliment.
I wonder if we're still engaged, Jack.
Look, Amy, you're a nice girl. You're good looking, too.
Thanks.
But if you and I can't see eye to eye in a good time once in a while...
It's all so hopeless, isn't it? Goodbye, Jack.
Yeah, let me help you out.
Oh, no, don't get out, Jack. Excluding tonight, thanks for a wonderful year.
Amy, I'm sorry if...
Go back to Jimmy's, Jack. Have a good time.
Okay, Amy. That's how you're going to take it?
Well, that night, after she falls asleep, Amy is awakened. The knocking at the front door down below frightens her.
Oh, God. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, protect me.
That is a little prayer she learned in childhood from her Catholic mother. Jesus, Mary, Joseph. Amy, trembling, goes to the window.
Who is that down there? Who is it?
Me. Father. Let me in. I lost my key.
Daddy.
Well, I hear you were at Jimmy's tonight, too.
Were you there?
Yeah, I got there after you left.
Daddy, what's the matter? You look... Daddy, you're cut on the side of your neck.
That's nothing serious.
What happened? Were you in an accident?
I was in a fight.
Oh, no.
You hear all about it, so I might as well tell you. I had Mona Lester with me.
You mean Carl Lester's wife?
You might as well know this, too. I've had her with me off and on for the last 6 months.
Daddy.
Daddy. Don't be such a prude, Amy. If the woman prefers my company to her husband's...
You mean your money to her husband?
That only proves she's a smart woman as well as a friendly one. More power to her. Oh, stop that. Oh, stop it, I tell you.
Is that all you think of my mother?
Your mother's been dead for 14 years. She's in no position to be interested.
Listen.
It's the state police. Well, let them come.
Why are they coming?
Carl Lester come into Jimmy's. He started roughing me up. Well, I roughed him up.
Did you kill him?
I said I roughed him up. What happened to him after I left, I don't know.
Why are you getting that revolver? You did kill him.
Go on upstairs, Amy.
No, I won't.
Get upstairs.
I won't.
Get upstairs, I tell you.
Nat Gorton, after wounding 2 of the state police, is shot and killed in the living room of his house. An And at his funeral, 2 days later, the only people present are Amy and the undertaker and the professional pallbearers. No friends. Nat Gordon had no friends. And no minister or priest of God. Nat Gordon had no God. Or at least so Nat Gordon thought. 2 days after burying him, Amy calls on someone she hasn't seen in a long time.
I'm sorry, Amy. Sorry with all my heart. The terrible death of your father. And then Jack Adams, the unpleasant incident there, too.
Oh, Father Morgan, how can life be so awful? So disgusting and cheap and ugly.
You're hurt, Amy. Terribly hurt, I know.
You're so good to let me talk with you, Father.
Amy more than talks with Father Morgan. Having been brought up a Catholic by her Catholic mother, she makes her confession and expresses sorrow, a genuine sorrow, for having neglected Mass and the sacraments for a whole year. She resumes going to Mass on Sundays, and somehow, although the terrible hurt is still in her heart, she learns how to endure it. Also an intelligent girl, she somehow, with the help of the 2 hired men, manages to keep the Gordon farm going. Some years ago, Amy had a friend in Hanover City, Beatrix Parker. Beatrix, unknown to Amy, has just recently returned to Hanover City.
Why, Beatrix Parker.
Connolly, Father Morgan.
It's good to see you back here on Main Street again.
Oh, it's good to see you, Father.
Whatever are you doing in Hanover City? I thought you were in Rome. Your husband, Captain Connolly, isn't it?
It's Major now.
Air Force attaché in Rome, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. He put in for active service again, and, well, he's now stationed, of all places, at Hanover Air Base.
Oh, back in your old hometown, eh?
Tell me, Father, how is everyone? How's Amy Gordon?
Well, you see...
I've already heard all about it, Father.
Yes, you were bound to, of course.
How's she holding up?
Admirably.
Oh, I so want to go out and see her, but...
You must.
Well, I want to, but I wouldn't know how to begin talking with her. I wouldn't know what to say.
You must go and see her, Beatrix. You'll do her good.
Oh, Trixie, I can't tell you how I've enjoyed your visit. Oh, you will come again, won't you, soon?
With pleasure, on condition that you visit us. You must meet my husband and children. The Major and the 2 majorettes.
Oh, I'd be glad to.
Well, we'll see you, darling. I repeat, you're looking beautiful. Don't you make eyes at my Major.
Oh, no chance of the Major making eyes at me with the wife he has. I repeat, too, you're looking so young, Trixie.
Well, are a husband and children supposed to make me look old in 4 short years?
No, I just think you look young, and I think it's wonderful.
Well, Amy visits the Connollys. The Connollys visit Amy. The young Connolly children take to Amy, and they all become good friends. One night at the Connollys, long after the children have gone to bed...
Oh, golly, this is the way to live, laughing and having fun, the way you 2 live.
We 2? You mean we 3?
You've been doing just as much laughing as we have, Amy.
Oh, religion. I've been stupid about it. I thought I needed it, but what I really needed was this.
What do you mean, Amy?
Well, my father never smiled. He never laughed. I never knew what happiness really was, not after my mother died, anyway. And then my father died, and I thought, well, perhaps I ought to practice my religion again, but that didn't do me any good. Nothing did me any good until you, Trixie, and you, Frank, you and your children made me feel that life is worth living. Oh, religion is all right. Going to church on Sunday, there's no harm in it, I suppose. Well, you do it. Lots of people do it. But, the real thing is friendship. Isn't it? Sorry, I've been so serious. You're looking terribly solemn, the two of you. I think I'd better be going.
But Amy...
It's 20 after 11. I'd better be going. I am going. Thanks for another lovely evening.
Amy, we'd really like you to stay.
Oh, no, Frank. You have to be at the air base tomorrow at 5 in the morning. You better get some sleep. Well, good night, my friends, and thanks again.
Leaving earlier and more hurriedly than she usually did, Amy left her two friends practically gaping at each other in their living room.
Frank, did you hear what she said?
About religion, you mean?
Did you hear it?
Did I hear it?
Frank, have we done something wrong?
I thought we were doing something right, or at least trying.
Good grief, Frank. What's wrong with us anyhow?
What do you mean, dear?
I mean, influencing her to think about religion like that. Just tolerating it. Almost looking down on it.
It's a rather disturbing result of our good intentions. Look, I won't have time to do it myself, but tomorrow, why not go and talk it over with Father Morgan?
Oh, he'll think we're awful, Frank.
Ask his advice. Tell him we're willing to do anything at all to make up for it.
Father, my husband is a very religious man.
I know he is. But you're a very religious woman.
Well, I don't know about that. But, Father, Frank is terribly upset. He joined me in showing Amy a good time because he wanted to see her, wanted her to see that life is good, that God is good. Amy was a bore to him at first, I know. Not that he ever said she was. He never even hinted at it.
No, he wouldn't.
Father, he loves our Lord. He loves his God. He took an interest in Amy because, well, first of all, because I did.
And then because he saw what you saw, that Amy needed help.
And now for Amy to imply that we've taken her mind off religion, well, it's been terribly upsetting to Frank, Father, and to me, too. We wonder what we've done wrong to make Amy feel like that.
Beatrix, if I were you and Frank, I wouldn't brood about it. You've tried to do the right thing, and, well, personally, I think that we ought to give Amy a little more time. Amy's all right. You and Frank have meant well. Amy has meant well. And if she has drawn a sort of thoughtless conclusion from things, let's give her a little more time.
Father, you make me feel better already.
The first informal, natural-like chance I see, I'll talk with Amy.
Father Morgan doesn't have to look for a chance to talk with Amy, because Amy soon comes to the rectory to have a talk with Father Morgan.
I know I said the wrong thing to them. I shocked them. I could tell by the look on their faces.
You said you couldn't sleep that night thinking about it. And what did thinking about it do for you?
Well, as I said, Father, I realized around about 6 o'clock in the morning that instead of being irreligious, they were religious. Otherwise, they wouldn't have looked so shocked.
They are religious, Amy. They go to Mass as many mornings during the week as Frank's duties permit. They make the holy hour of reparation every first Friday. And you know why they do all that? Because they love God. Beatrix and Frank are happy people, Amy. They have good looks, good health, good incomes, and I don't think they have ever in their lives had real trouble. Oh, Frank has been in danger many times, of course, but neither of them has ever had real personal trouble. And yet, you know what they are? They're mourners.
Mourners? How do you mean?
They see this, that the sin in the world offends God. And being generous, being grateful to God for the good things He has given them, they mourn with Him, so to speak, over the people who abuse His gifts. Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Yes, Beatrix and Frank are mourners.
Blessed are they who mourn. You give me a new idea of what that means, Father.
Not to twist the knife in the wound, Amy, but let's just mention two things that have hurt you. First, Jack Adams and all that business, the nightclub, the broken engagement, and so forth. Next, the death of your father. They hurt you, didn't they? Well, in a way, they hurt God, too. Did you ever think of that?
No, I didn't. I should have.
We can't think of everything all at once, Amy.
Beatrix and Frank seem to think of everything, though.
You'll think of everything, too, Amy.
Yes. Instead of mourning with Amy Gordon, I'll mourn with God. I'll think about Him instead of myself.
Good. Good. And then you'll be comforted, Amy.
The Ave Maria Hour.
The fourth Beatitude. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after justice, for they shall have their fill. 2 weeks ago, in the second of the stories in this series, we met George Drakely and Agnes Mueller. George, you remember, at first underrated Agnes, but when he really came to know her, he fell in love with her, and now they're engaged.
Well, darling, that just about settles everything, doesn't it?
No wonder you're such a good lawyer. You do settle everything, don't you?
Well, that's nicer than saying I fix everything.
Oh, you're not that kind of lawyer.
George and Agnes, you see, have been discussing the plans for their marriage. And since Agnes's parents are not living, well, George himself has taken an active part in the plans.
Practically speaking, remember that moving picture? You're the father of the bride.
The stepfather, anyhow. Oh, well, it has been fun.
Uh-huh. It makes me think of the kind of father you will be, George. You'll be a good one.
Sure, as long as you don't overdo being a mother.
You don't think I'll ever love you less for being a father, do you?
That's not what I mean, Agnes.
Well, what do you mean, George?
Oh, I just mean that, well, let's not have our children by the dozen.
You mean...
Well, I mean this. Let's have 2, let's have 3, but, well, let's not overdo it, that's all.
Oh, I see.
Now, I'm not saying let's not have any children. Why, I love children.
Yes, I know you do.
How people have a whole flock of them can pay individual attention to any of them, I just can't imagine.
But, George, when I think of children, I simply think of loving them as God sends them to me. It's never occurred to me that I might exhaust my love on the first one or the first 2.
Oh, look, Agnes, you're a good girl, I know. It's one of the reasons I love you so much. It really is. Well, all this talk against birth control, now who made it up? Priests. Well, I respect priests as much as you do, especially when they offer Mass or hear confessions and all that. But what do priests really know about marriage? What do they know about raising children in the conditions of modern life?
George is a good, honorable young man. I respect him. Terribly generous and kind. When he talked to me like that about artificial ways of not having children, I didn't agree with him. But I didn't argue with him either. I worried about not telling him what I believe about marriage. I felt like telling him it wasn't really priests who make up the rules. It was nature. It was nature's God. It was the moral law. Well, this morning at Sunday Mass, I was struck by something that Father Morgan said in his sermon. The sermon, oddly enough, was not about marriage and children. It was about the fourth Beatitude. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after justice.
And so, justice, my dear people, is the virtue by which we give to others whatever belongs to them. Give to man what belongs to man. Give to God what belongs to God. In the broadest sense, then, it's the hunger and thirst after the right thing in all the circumstances of life. The God-inspired hunger and thirst after the right thing.
The thought planted in Agnes's mind by Father Morgan leads her to have a heart-to-heart talk with George. And the upshot of the talk...
Agnes, you win.
It isn't a case of winning. If anyone has won anything, it's you.
Oh? How come?
An idea was fighting for your mind, and you won out over it.
But with your help, Agnes. Look, there are going to be two principles, so to speak. Two principles in our lives. The one ending in A-L, money. Well, I'll look after that, hey? The one ending in L-E, well, suppose you look after that. You're a better man there than I am, Agnes.
Oh, I am not.
Oh, yes, you are. As far as the L-E principle is concerned, you lead on, and I'll follow.
Don't be so modest. You're a good man, George.
With a wife like you, that's what I want to be.
George, about children.
Yes?
Whatever made you say what you did? You're a Catholic. Whatever made you think...
Oh, I suppose I did too much listening the other night to some people out at the country club.
I know. A lot of people nowadays are listening.
Listening too much to the wrong thing, I suppose.
And too little to the right thing.
Where do you hear the right thing, anyhow?
In church.
But what about the people who don't go to church? Where do they hear it?
In their consciences, don't they? The voice of conscience.
He and Agnes are happy. They begin to prosper. And shortly after the birth of their second child, they have a little boy and a little girl now. We're with George in his law office on Main Street in Hanover City.
Hello, George Drakeley speaking.
This is Millard Hamilton.
Oh, yes, Mr. Hamilton.
How would you like to have me for a client?
Why, I'd like nothing better. Matter of fact, any lawyer in town, any lawyer in the state would be glad to have you for a client, Mr. Hamilton.
Oh, well, that's fine. Come over and see me, and we'll make a deal.
Oh, thanks a lot. Hey, thank you for calling. Wow. George Drakeley, Millard Hamilton's lawyer.
That afternoon, George hurries home an hour earlier than usual.
Agnes! Say, Agnes!
Hello, darling. Might you look happy?
Oh, now, where are the children?
Where do you think?
Say, I've got good news for them.
They're both out in the kitchen in their playpens, watching me peel potatoes.
Oh, Agnes, you'll not be peeling potatoes much longer.
Why not? Are we all going on some kind of diet?
Yes, a diet of lobster and champagne.
Oh, even the children?
Even the children.
I always knew you were going to spoil them. What is the good news, darling? Tell me first. The children wouldn't understand it anyhow.
Okay. Millard Hamilton has asked me to become his lawyer.
Millard Hamilton?
I repeat, Millard Hamilton.
Oh.
Well, you don't look very happy about it.
Oh, I'm happy for you, George. It's a tribute to your ability.
A
I
tribute,
know.
I should say it is. Hamilton doesn't mess around with mediocrities.
What became of that lawyer he used to have? Mr. Pearson, wasn't it?
Yeah, Pearson's retiring, going to live in Florida. Well, wife, what do you think of your husband now?
I think he's a wonderful husband. I've always thought so.
Yeah, well, we're in clover now, honey. Well, you're not saying much. Does it all take your breath away?
Yes, it does, in a way.
Well, what are you thinking about? Hamilton's reputation?
I suppose so.
Agnes, I'll bet you that reputation of his is 99% the product of jealous gossip and sheer gullibility on the part of people who listen to it. Well, can you prove anything against the man?
No, George, I don't suppose I can.
Then why not give him the benefit of Christian charity?
What do you mean, George?
Are you afraid that I'd do anything crooked for anybody?
No, if there's one thing I'm not afraid of, it's that.
All right, then, be cheerful. And the next summer, a vacation at the seashore. And 17, 18 years from now, college educations for our children. Oh, it's been a great day today, Agnes. A great day.
The large sheet metal factory, managed, although not owned by Millet Hamilton, has a poor reputation for safety. There are many accidents in it, and every year at least one of the workers is killed. In his first long, serious talk with him in the law office on Main Street, George Drakely learns what it means to have the best-paying client he's ever had.
I'll be frank with you, Mr. Hamilton. This safety situation at the factory, how does the union, well, frankly, how does the union let the factory get away with it?
Well, here's the situation. The union leader is Garrett Smith. And Garrett Smith is a man my lawyer always takes care of. Your predecessor, Clarence Pearson, did it very well. He did everything very well.
You mean...
We have a fund for contingencies, Drakely. You handle it. It's part of your legal service. Well, one of our recurring contingencies is Garrett Smith.
You mean you pay him to...
We pay him to go easy. Why, good grief. If we installed every safety device we're expected to, it would cost us a fortune.
Yeah, but what about the police, Mr. Hamilton? I mean, how do they let the factory get away with it?
Well, they don't. They're after us all the time. And we've hesitated to offer them money. Well, Pearson always told me that the police chief here is one of those honest people.
Well, Captain Myers. Yes, I know him. He took my father's place.
I hear your father has great influence with him.
Oh, now, Mr. Hamilton, if you're implying...
I never imply anything, Drakely. No, I don't want you to ask your father to ask Myers to go easy on us. That would be too obvious. All I'm asking you to do is to take care of Garrett Smith. Keep him happy and don't pay him more than you have to. Now, do we understand each other?
Well,
Smith, of course, is only a minor part of your job, a sort of sideline. Most of it is routine legal work, contracts, taxes, all that sort of thing. Well, I've got to be going to the factory. Oh, why not come out there tomorrow? I'll show you around, and we can have lunch at the country club. Think you can make it?
Yes, I think I can, Mr. Hamilton.
Good. I'll introduce you to Garrett Smith if we run across him.
Well, the weeks pass. When George comes home at night now, he has little to say. He used to talk a lot about his law practice. That is, when it didn't involve anything confidential between him and his clients, of course. But now, no talk, except about what appears in the newspapers. That isn't interesting. After all, Agnes reads the newspapers herself. On this particular night...
Darling?
Mm-hmm.
Why so quiet?
Oh, well, I'm tired, I suppose.
You're not talking much anymore. You used to talk such a lot. With gay talk, too. Happy talk.
Was it?
I loved it.
You sound as if it was ages ago.
Ever since you took on Millard Hamilton as a client.
Oh, but that was 6 weeks ago.
Well, ever since then, you haven't been yourself.
Well, there's a lot of detailed work to it. That's a big company he runs, you know.
Yes, and you're working so hard at it.
Well, aren't you satisfied with the money I'm making at it?
Darling, I'm satisfied with everything except except what it might do to your health.
Oh, my health's all right.
Well, there's no sense in making more money than we need if you're going to exhaust yourself
Well,
at it.
don't get excited about it.
I'm not excited, but I am concerned.
Concerned? You and your conscience.
Now, who said anything about my conscience?
I know. You still disapprove of Millard Hamilton's character.
And who said anything about Millard Hamilton's character? Is he on your conscience, George?
Well, you do disapprove of him, don't you?
George, I brought up his name in passing. I didn't bring up his character.
Look, he's a good man to work for. He's not a small-timer. He's not cheap. He pays good money.
But, George, I haven't said anything against him.
I'm sorry. I suppose I'm tired.
Why don't you go to bed and get a good long sleep for a change?
Yeah, I never thought I'd ever get as tired as this.
Everybody gets tired once in a while.
You're sweet, Agnes. You're real.
You're real, George said to Agnes. Well, perhaps he said that because these days with Millard Hamilton, he's leading a life which is unreal compared to the life he knew with his fine parents and the life he knows with his lovely wife and children. Yes, to George Drakely, Millard Hamilton is a new experience. A profitable experience, but new and strange. One afternoon, Millard Hamilton calls on George's father, Captain Drakely, the retired chief of police of Hanover City.
As you know, Captain, your son George is now the lawyer for the factory.
Yes, I know. He's told me.
As a lawyer, he's clever. He's smart. He knows his law.
Well, he always was a good student in college and law school.
Captain, he has a real future ahead of him. A real future for himself, for his wife, and for his children. Your grandchildren, Captain.
Mr. Hamilton, you didn't come here to discuss the time of day.
No, you're right, Captain, I didn't. I've come here to make a request. Will you suggest to your friend and successor, the new chief of police, Captain Myers, that he lay off?
Lay off? Lay off what?
My factory.
You mean the safety precautions there? Or the lack of them?
You'd be helping your son, Captain. Your son and your grandchildren.
Hamilton, I always suspected that you were no good.
Well, I'm good for $2,000, Captain. $2,000 for you and Myers.
Myers isn't that kind of an officer. Neither am I.
Myers is threatening to close the factory down. Now, if he did that, it might take 6 weeks before we could install those safety devices.
You should have installed them 2 years ago when you took the place over.
Close it down, and what happens? Why, 1,700 people out of work for 6 weeks. And your son, as far as the factory is concerned, out of work permanently. Think it over, Captain. Good afternoon.
Captain Drakely thinks it over. He thinks it over very quickly and decisively. He goes directly to George's law office.
So you see, that's the story, George. That's the kind of man you're working for. Now, what are you going to do about it?
Dad, I'm going to do the right thing. That's what Agnes calls it. She got it from Father Morgan, she tells me. The hunger and thirst after the right thing.
Good boy. You can't go wrong by seeing things the way that girl sees them.
George is driving to the factory. He goes over in his mind what he's going to say to Hamilton.
Hamilton, you and I are quits. I haven't been happy about you anyhow. Not for the last 6 miserable weeks. You're a crook, Hamilton. You're a murderer. Every life lost in one of those accidents here in this factory. Every drop of blood spilled in every one of those injuries. Why don't you install those safety devices, Hamilton? It's a matter of basic justice. You owe it to your workers.
Why do you corrupt that union leader, Garrett Smith? That's another matter of basic justice. Men have a right to have an honest leader. What do? You deny them that right. You deny them something that belongs to them by corrupting him. Hamilton, I feel dirty. Dirty from knowing you, working for you. God forgive me. Think of the wife I have and the 2 children. Another one on the way. What would they think of me if they only knew? Her husband. Their father. A crook. A crook. Like Hamilton himself. God forgive me.
When, however, George arrives at Hamilton's office, much of his determination evaporates. And Hamilton, a far shrewder man, sees what's on his mind.
Mr. Hamilton, I know I didn't call you to tell you I was coming, but I...
Well, I'm glad you came, Drakely. I was going to call you.
Oh? Oh, is that so? Anything on your mind?
Oh, number of things. Things that'll keep you rather busy, if you're interested. Are you interested?
You mean, is it a matter of my legal services?
With services to the factory, no, not this time. Legal services to me personally, yes.
Oh, to you personally.
It'll mean $10,000 to you, Drakely, and expenses.
Well, I'm always interested in a good fee. What lawyer isn't?
Exactly. What lawyer isn't?
Well, what's on your mind, Mr. Hamilton?
Rebecca Ansel.
Oh.
I'd like you to see what you can do about it.
Does your wife... Does Mrs. Hamilton know?
I suspect that Mrs. Hamilton suspects my interest in Mrs. Ansel.
And what about Mr. Ansel?
I think he suspects it, too.
Has Mrs. Hamilton given you grounds for divorce?
No, she hasn't. It's up to you, Drakely, to work it out.
There's a pause in the conversation here. Not a long pause, but one of those pauses in which a man can think long thoughts.
Agnes is going to have another child. Agnes, whom I love. But all those high principles of hers. Justice, she says. The right thing. The hunger and thirst after the right thing. Giving to man what belongs to man. Giving to God what belongs to God. Well, that was her idea, not mine. $10,000.
Did I say $10,000, Drakely? Make it 15. 15,000 in expenses. Mrs. Ansel will pay Mr. Ansel $100,000 if he turns out to be accommodating. I want you to work on that end of it, too. 15,000 as lawyer for the factory, 15,000 as lawyer for me, and expenses. I'd like an answer from you here and now. Well, Drakely?
I'd like to think it over, Mr. Hamilton.
Well, think what over?
Mr. Hamilton, I'll take the case. I don't know what I can do about it, but, well, I'll try.
Well, now you can really do something for that family of yours.
Yes. Yes, it looks now as if I can.
Oh, and by the way, these safety installations, see what you can do about talking your father into talking Myers into going easy on us, will you? I didn't get to first base with your father myself.
Oh, did you talk to him?
Yes, and I got nowhere with him. He seems to regard me as a sort of shady character.
If he does, what do you think he'll think of me for representing you?
If you tell him that you're a shady character yourself, he might do what we want him to do out of a desire to protect his son and his grandchildren.
What?
What do you mean? Tell him I'm a shady character myself.
Why, anyone who pays hush money to that union leader, Garrett Smith, is a shady character. And I have the goods on you there, Drakely. Without implicating myself, I can make it known that the reason why I've dropped you as the factory's lawyer is that I caught you paying hush money against all my principles to Garrett Smith.
Everything you do is part of a plan, isn't it?
It's one of the rules of success, Drakely. Plan everything. If your father, by not giving us a break, wants to expose his son to disgrace, all right, let him go ahead. Why don't you talk it over with him? I think he'll come around to our point of view.
Hamilton, you know what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to expose you to this whole town. I'm going to drive you out of it.
You mean you're going to reveal the confidences of a client to his lawyer?
No, I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'll just kick you out of town. Maybe I'll worry you out. I don't know how I'll do it yet, but I'll do it.
All right, Drakely, and maybe you'll succeed. But not before I tell everybody about the hush money you've been paying to Garrett Smith.
I haven't paid Smith a penny of hush money.
You haven't?
No, I've been stalling him off.
Why?
My conscience, I suppose. Or my wife's conscience.
What does her conscience have to do with it?
Well, it's hard to explain. But sometimes when my own conscience goes back on me, hers seems to step in to take its place.
You mean you've been discussing business? My business with your wife?
No. It's just that sometimes her principles take over inside me when my own principles take off. That's why I've hesitated for the last 6 weeks to pay Smith any hush money. Now, I won't say I would have continued hesitating. I'm no saint, you know. But, well, my wife has beaten you at your own game. You play it crooked. She plays it straight. And she wins.
You mean she loses $30,000?
She sleeps peacefully at night, Hamilton. You can't buy that for $1 million.
Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after justice, for they shall have their fill.
The fifth Beatitude. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. The town, of course, is Hanover City, the scene of our first 4 stories of modern living. On the whole, it's a well-conducted community. Political scandal has not touched it in a long time. But just at present, well, we shall see. Together over a late dinner in the city's best restaurant, we meet Harry Murdoch and Ted Oliver. Murdoch past middle age, Oliver in his early 30s.
Look, Murdoch, what's it mean to you?
What does it mean to me? I don't get you.
I mean financially.
Well, $5,000 a year. That's a matter of public knowledge.
And that's all, isn't it? $5,000 a year.
What's in the back of your mind?
Politics. Politics in Hanover City.
Well, a dull subject.
And you've been working at it for 35 years.
35 years wasted.
Exactly. Look, Murdoch, your vote in the city council can change politics in this city overnight.
My vote? On what issue?
New chief of police.
Oh, that's in the bag.
The Drakely bag?
Of course.
Drakely doesn't control either Stevenson or Miller.
But he does control the mayor and Joe Marhefka. Well, I've always more or less gone along with him, too. After all, he's the winning side, Frank Drakely is.
Yeah. The $5,000 side. The dull side.
5 years ago, when he retired as chief of police, Frank Drakely kept up his interest in Hanover City, and he became more or less the power behind the scene of the city's dominant political faction. That faction has pretty well succeeded in making Hanover City the well-conducted community it is. But young Ted Oliver's idea of city government is somewhat different from Frank Drakely's.
Murdoch, all you have to do is take one chance. Look, Sullivan's reached the age limit. He's going on pension in 3 months. All right. Drakely wants a new chief to be that young fellow White, Jerry White. The mayor and Joe Mahefka, they're voting for White. Stevenson and Miller, they're voting for Jack Pauley. So that leaves it up to you. Harry, old man, why in the name of $5,000 plus won't you vote for Pauley?
What do you mean by $5,000 plus?
$5,000, that's your salary. The plus would be... Use your imagination.
Mean that Pauley would let things go on?
Yeah. Things that go on in practically every city in the country except this one. Things that mean money for Pauley and his friends. Things that aren't going on here now and that won't go on if that fella Jerry White becomes chief of police.
He's pretty good.
Oh, he's ambitious. I don't blame him for that, but going around being pious and all that just in order to play up the church people.
Just in order to impress Drakely. Just in order to play up to church people. Just in order to impress Drakely. Just in order to play up to church people.
Pat, darling.
Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. I was all wrapped up in this article.
Oh, interesting, isn't it?
Quite. I think you'd enjoy it yourself. The writer has a wonderful sense of humor.
Yeah, I'll have to read it.
What's on your mind, Jerry?
I look as if I had something on it.
Yes. Anything serious happened today?
No, not as far as police work's concerned.
Well, Lieutenant, what is it? Cold in the head? That wisdom tooth bothering you again? Or did some little boys throw stones at you and knock off your cap?
Darling, you know what I've just about decided?
What, dear?
To resign from the police force.
Jerry!
Yeah, I still have that old hankering to move out into the country and settle down on a farm.
Jerry, they're just about ready to appoint you chief, aren't they?
Harry Murdoch was rumored to be thinking of voting for Jack Pauley, but he's changed his mind. He told the newspapers today he'd vote for me.
But I know you like to think about farms, but it's something else, isn't it?
Pat, you remember when the doctors told us we wouldn't have any children? We had a long talk. We talked it over with Father Morgan. We settled that, well, if there weren't going to be any children, we'd do whatever we could for other children. And old people and people down on their luck.
The corporal and spiritual works of mercy.
It was your idea.
No, it was yours.
Well, let's say it was Father Morgan's idea.
Whosever idea it was, you've certainly practiced it.
He was following your example.
In 2 more minutes, if we don't stop complimenting each other, we'll be proud of our humility.
Well, I am proud of yours, I can tell you that.
Let's be serious.
Oh, yeah. Police force, being the big chief. But you know the story that's gone around? Lieutenant White does what he does in order to impress Captain Drakely, in order to play up to the church crowd.
Jerry, is that what people are saying?
Mm-hmm. So I understand.
But it isn't true. That isn't your reason.
I wonder.
Well, you know it isn't.
I like the idea of being chief of police.
Well, is there anything wrong with that?
Maybe we've been doing the things we have in order to get ahead.
Jerry, you'd get ahead without trying. It's your nature. You're a born leader.
Oh, I don't know, Pat. I don't know. Feeding the hungry, visiting the sick, comforting the afflicted. All that, the spiritual and corporal works of mercy. Well, maybe I've been using them as stepping stones.
Stepping stones to heaven, yes.
Maybe stepping stones to chief of police.
Oh, darling, you're being too severe with yourself.
The next day passes, and the day after that, and Jerry wrestles with his problem of conscience. Pat, his wife, upset by the problem, not opposing him on it, but upset by it, tells her mother. And her mother, Mrs. Quiggett, tells Jerry.
Gerald White, I've never heard of such a thing, really.
I never heard of it myself.
Giving up a good position for a silly reason like that.
Mother, it isn't a silly reason. Not with Jerry, anyhow. I think it's a sort of mixed-up reason.
I should say it is mixed up. I'm sorry, Jerry, but it's a question of the welfare and security of my daughter.
Oh, it's not the welfare and security I'm worried about.
Well, what are you worried about?
Jerry himself.
Oh, you don't have to worry about me.
But, darling, would this drastic step, would it be the right thing for you?
The right thing? Giving up a good position and a pension at the end of it? How could it possibly be the right thing?
Well, all I can say is, I wish I could explain it. But the idea of using my religion just for the purpose of getting ahead...
But it's not your purpose, darling. You're not using your religion. You're practicing it. You're living up to it.
If you ask me, I think that the two of you are living up to it too seriously. Charity, begins at home. Half of this money you're giving away on these good works, well, you ought to be putting it into insurance. Think of your old age.
Now, Mother, Pat and I are putting enough into insurance to take care of our old age.
Well, how will you take care of your present age if you give up your position? Honey, it's silly and violent. That's what it is. Tearing up your roots.
Yes, tearing up our roots from city cement and planting them in the good earth.
Poetic, isn't it? It's violent. That's the only word for it. Violent. Inexcusable. Crazy. Downright lunatic crazy.
Pulling up their roots from city cement and planting them in the good earth. The idea for Jerry did have its poetry to it, but he acted on the idea the way he acted on every idea that he took seriously. That is, he threw himself into it. He worked with a will. The result? Time passes by. The seasons of the year. Seasons of sowing and seasons of harvest. And times aren't always good. Life on the farm isn't easy at first. Life on the farm is never easy, really. But Jerry works. He works. And Pat, his wife, stands by him. She stands by him. And gradually, in that farming country outside Hanover City, Pat and Jerry become personalities among their neighbors.
Well, you've elected me chairman of the community chest drive in this county. I take it that means you want me to go around getting money out of you. And that would seem to mean that you have money to give away. Well, that's good. It'll make my job easy. But seriously, I know that you want to give money to the various hospitals and orphanages and other good causes. Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, and non-sectarian, here in our county and in Hanover City. It's an honor to be elected chairman by people like you. It's an honor simply to be a neighbor of people like you. In the few short years we've been with you, my wife and I have been happy among you. And I promise you I'll translate that happiness into hard work in behalf of the community chest drive.
Works of mercy to people's bodies and people's minds. These occupied much of the limited spare time of Jerry White and his wife, Pat. One of the works of mercy to people's minds is instructing them in the truth. As an active member of the Confraternity of Christian Doctrine, Pat helps Father Morgan to teach catechism to adults seeking instruction in religion. Father Morgan is pastor of St. Francis of Assisi Church in Hanover City. And he has a mission chapel out in the country, a mile or so from the White's farm. There, in a meeting room, Pat, once a week, teaches the catechism.
Now say it after me. All together, shall we? Don't be self-conscious about it. All together now, shall we? God made me to know him, love him, and serve him.
God made me to know him,
love him, and serve him
in this life,
in this life,
and to be happy forever with him
and to be happy forever with him
in the next.
in the next.
That wasn't too hard.
Of course it wasn't. I just wanted to hear grown-ups saying it together. I'm so used to hearing children.
Then, one day, while Jerry is out at the far end of the farm, repairing a fence,
Oh, go away! Jerry! Jerry!
I was there, Jerry, there in the kitchen when he came in. It was Ted Oliver, that politician. He was drunk, and he came in and put his arms around me and tried to kiss me. I broke away and ran to the door and screamed.
Now, don't worry, darling. You'll be all right. Where is he? Which way did he go?
The wagon path, the old wagon path.
Down to the woods?
Yes. Jerry, you're not going to hurt him.
Oh, hello, Jerry. I'm sorry. Gosh, when I walked in, I didn't know it was your farmhouse. Honestly, I didn't. I thought the gal was somebody else's wife, not yours. Really, I didn't. I would...
Jerry, what have you done to him?
Oh, there he is.
Oh, he's hurt, Jerry. He's suffering. Look at him lying there. He can hardly breathe. What are we going to do with him?
Put him in the car and take him to Hanover City Hospital, I suppose.
2 days later, in the Hanover City Hospital, Ted Oliver is lying in bed. Jerry White is standing alongside, looking down on him.
Yeah, but White, I apologize the day I did it. I've apologized today. Well, what do you want? I'm going to apologize to your wife as soon as I get out of this hospital.
After you get out of this hospital, I want you to get out of this town.
Get what?
Get out of this town and stay out of it.
What do you mean?
Your type has no place in this town. The people around here, most of them are decent, and you're not.
White, if I weren't laid up here in bed...
I'd let you have it again.
Yeah, but Jerry, I was born in Hanover City. I live here. My mother and father live here.
You can take your mother and father with you if you want.
You mean...
I mean what I say. Now get yourself out of Hanover City soon, very soon, quick.
The next evening, Pat being out of the house visiting one of their neighbors, Father Morgan calls on Jerry.
Jerry, what's this I hear about you and Ted Oliver?
What do you hear, Father?
They tell me you intend to beat him up again if he doesn't leave town.
They tell you? Who are they?
Oh, well, a little bird in my windowsill, Jerry. A dove apiece.
Mm-hmm. Ted Oliver himself, I suppose.
It could be. It could be.
Father, I'm sorry to put it to you this way, but as far as I'm concerned, Ted Oliver's no dove of peace. He's a sitting duck, and if he doesn't fly away, I'm going to bag him.
You seem to have a lot of feeling and passion about him.
I have that, all right.
Well, I have a lot of feeling and passion myself, Jerry, about one thing in particular, especially this evening.
And what's that, Father?
Peace and goodwill and charity among human beings. I believe in them, and I'd like to see you practice them, Jerry.
I've always tried to practice them.
You now have a chance to practice the real thing.
What do you mean, Father?
Mercy. The real thing. Real mercy. Forgiveness of someone who has trespassed against you.
Oh.
The spiritual and corporal works of mercy they're wonderful things. Whether people practice them out of willpower or natural good nature, they're wonderful things. And you and Pat, you've practiced them, no doubt about that, Jerry. But why have you practiced them? Out of sheer good nature?
Haven't God Almighty and your willpower had anything to do with them?
I don't understand, Father.
What is facing you now, Jerry, this very moment? A real chance to be really merciful. Merciful not when it's easy, but when it's hard. Face up to that chance. Jerry, you understand what I'm driving at, don't you?
Yes, I understand, Father. You can tell Ted Oliver for me that, well, tell him I'll forget all about everything. No, Father, I'll tell him myself.
10 years later, Congressman Jerry White is addressing a crowd of people in the auditorium at Hanover City High School.
Well, friends, it's good to be back. As far as my first term as your congressman is concerned, I've enjoyed it. I've done the best at it that I could. There are things in Washington that can make a man unhappy. There are Democrats who are Democrats first and Americans second. Republicans who are Republicans first and Americans second. That kind of politics saddens me, especially at a time in world history like the present. However, loyal though I've been to my party, I think I can honestly say that, along with certain patriotic men in Washington whom I admire, I have tried in my own small way to be an American first. That has been easy, because all along I know I have been representing men and women who believe in being Americans first, and whose idea of party politics is not a narrow, old-fashioned, outdated idea. And so, on the whole, down in Washington, I have been happy. But I am glad to be home. And I rather think that I shall stay home. The suggestion that I run next as your candidate for the United States Senate, that touches me. I feel honored by it. But there are men in this state who would make far better senators than I would. And besides, I have a personal reason for wishing to settle back again on my beloved farm. My wife and I have not been blessed with children of our own. And so we have adopted a little boy and a little girl, brother and sister, whose father was killed in Korea and whose mother died some months ago of a strange infection. Many of you here knew the mother and father well, Captain and Mrs. Paul McHenry. Well, little Larry and little Margie are at the White farmhouse now, and frankly, I wish to see as much of them as my wife does. I shall continue, as always, to take an interest in public life, but I shall lead a private life. Back among you again, my neighbors and my friends.
Darling, that was a beautiful, beautiful speech.
It's the last speech I'll ever give in my life.
Oh, don't say it that way. Makes you sound old, and you're still only in your 40s.
No, I feel like I did in my 20s and 30s.
You mean with the weight of politics lifted from you?
No. I mean with the weight of those two children. One of them in each of my arms. They're like puffs of cotton, aren't they?
They are little honeys.
Adopting them, oh, that was a wonderful idea of yours.
I think you like the boy best.
Oh, I like them both. I think you like the girl best.
I like them both, too. I love them.
Oh, it's grand to be coming home, Pat. And staying there, not just dropping in for a visit.
Washington's a beautiful and interesting city, but...
But's the word. Oh, there's no place like home. What's the latest Hanover City news? I don't mean the headlines. I've seen those. I mean the folksy news.
Well, the Ambroses have sold all their chickens.
No. He's more or less retiring, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Mr. Gowrie has bought the old Crossroads place.
Good. Good. He'll restore it and take good care of it.
And Ted Oliver, remember Ted?
I'll never forget him.
Well, after giving up politics and all those ups and downs in business he had, he's doing nicely now, they say. And he married Sally Cousin.
Ted Oliver marries Sally Cousin? Will wonders never cease?
He married Sally Cousin.
Well, that's good. Sally ought to do a lot of good for him.
They say he did a lot of good for himself before he married her.
Pulled himself together, has he?
Yes.
Good, good. Well, there we are, Pat. The old farmhouse.
Old? Don't say old. We've only been there 14 years.
Right, you know what I mean. Hey, shall I blow the horn and wake the little shavers
Just
up?
you try. If you wake them up, you'll have to put them back to sleep.
Oh, gosh, I wouldn't know how to do that.
Oh, don't worry, darling. You'll learn.
The next evening, after a gentleman who has talked privately with Jerry has left the White Farmhouse.
Darling, there's a strange look on your face.
Oh, really?
For a second, it gave me the queerest feeling. You don't seem to want to talk about it.
What? Talk about a look on my face?
Reminded me of the strange look you had that night, remember? Just before you told me you were going to resign from the police force.
Yeah, a lot of water's flowed under the bridge since that night.
A whole Mississippi of water. Farming and success. Politics and success. Now the two little children. Were you thinking about them?
No.
Oh, tell me. What is it? Was it by any chance that nice gentleman who was just here?
Well, yes. In a way, yes.
What do you want, a political job?
Well, yes and no.
You're being so mysterious.
Well, he did want a political job for someone else.
Oh?
Ted Oliver.
Well, really? I thought Ted was doing well in business.
He is, but he wants to run, and his friends want him to run. For Congress, to take my place. If I'm resigning, which I am, they want him to take my place.
Him? Why do you say it like that, contemptuously?
Do you think I'd consent to the nomination of a man like that?
A man like what, Jerry? Well, he's not the man he used to be, you know. He's a better man now. He's tried hard and he's made good. He's all right. He's pulled himself together.
Oh.
Well, you forgave him once, Jerry. You were merciful. You were going to beat up his body, but you didn't. Now are you going to beat up his mind?
It's an odd expression. Beat up his mind. What do you mean by it?
Well, you know what I mean, darling. A man's mind is more important than his body. Forgive his mind, too. It's changed. His thoughts are good now. Be merciful, Jerry. Where are you going, darling?
Up to take a look at the children.
But, Jerry, what about... What about...
You win, Pat. You win. As far as beating people up's concerned, I gave up being a bully a long time ago. I hope.
God bless you, darling.
The sixth Beatitude. Blessed are the clean of heart, for they shall see God. Our story this time does not take place entirely in Hanover City, but it opens there. It opens in the reception room of the rectory of St. Francis of Assisi Church.
Oh, Miss Florrie.
Good evening, Father Morgan. You used to call me just plain Claire.
Well, I'll call you Claire again, but I won't call you plain.
Oh.
Wasn't so good, was it? Yes, indeed. You've grown into a beautiful young woman, like your mother when she was in her 20s.
And she still is, don't you think?
She still has beauty. And it's more than skin deep. It's from the inside out.
Her heart, yes.
Her soul.
Oh, her soul, of course.
We mustn't be afraid of that word, soul.
I'm not, Father.
No, I don't think you are, Claire. You're your mother's daughter.
And my father's, too, I hope.
Artistically, yes. Your father's a fine musician. If he'd ever gone on to New York...
Oh, he's always been happy conducting and teaching here in Hanover City.
Yes, but I hear that you...
Oh, yes, Father. I think I shall lay siege to Broadway.
I hope you'll capture it, Claire.
Well, that's what I came to talk with you about. I would like to know, Father, if you really approve of my going there.
You've already decided on it, haven't you?
I suppose I have, but...
Look, Claire, you've acted successfully, you've acted beautifully in amateur plays all over this part of the state. You've been a star on the local radio. You know the pitfalls of the entertainment business as well as I do. Well, I dare say the pitfalls are deeper on Broadway than they are here. I pray that you won't fall into them, and I know that with God's help, you won't.
I know that, Father. I know that with his help, I won't.
Otherwise, Claire, I wish you success, great success. There have been actors and actresses who have been honored, as you know, by Catholic colleges, Catholic societies. They've been given awards for having, well, kept clean.
Yes, I remember reading that Margaret Anglin years ago won that, what is that Notre Dame award called?
The Letare.
Yes.
Very distinguished. Not easily come by.
Someday, I should like to win it myself. Is that pride, Father?
I don't know, Claire. I couldn't say. Only God really knows people's motives. If you need, and I suppose an artist does need, some kind of recognition of the beauty, the glamour, the decent fun, the uplift you bring into people's lives, well, I hope you will win the Letare Award, Claire. I hope you'll win everything in sight.
Oh, Father, you're wonderful.
I don't know about that, but I think you're wonderful, Claire. You're an artist.
I try to be, Father. I try to be.
And you'll probably have to keep on trying, Claire. Sometimes, to people of ability like yourself, Broadway comes easy. Sometimes it comes hard.
And how does Broadway come? Easy or hard to Claire? Claire Flory and her roommate, Vera Haynes. Well, here they are in their neat, clean, but simple room in New York, this particular night at close to 12 o'clock.
Hello.
Hello, Vera.
Well?
Oh.
No luck?
No luck.
Why, I thought...
Oh, so did I. The way he talked yesterday, I thought it was a sure thing.
What happened?
He took Mildred Barnhart instead. He said she had a better voice for that particular part.
Oh, you can't tell me that.
What do you mean?
I mean this. Mildred has a better voice for buttering him up. That's what I mean. Why don't you butter him up? He's all right. He's a gentleman.
Joe Hayes? Of course he is. And a good director, too.
But he's human, darling. Why don't you tell him he's a good director?
Tell him to his face?
Oh, I don't mean point blank, but insinuate it. Insinuate it the way Mildred does.
She does it as if she means it.
Oh, she does mean it, but you mean it, too, so why don't you come out with it?
Darling, I can't. I just can't. I wish I could, but when I start reading a script, I forget personalities. I forget the author, the director, the people around me, even myself. The only personality I'm conscious of is the character whose lines I'm reading.
Serious. That's your trouble. You're too serious. Too dedicated.
Dedicated? Well, aren't you? Don't you mean all this?
This cheap room? These cheap clothes, canned food? Yes and no, darling. I mean them if I don't have to put up with it much longer.
Oh, I'm sure you won't. You're good, Vera. You'll get your break soon. You have talent.
Maybe I have. But you, well, look at you. You've got more than talent, and where are you?
Oh, please don't rub it in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're sweet, Vera.
Thanks, but I'm turning sour. I'm warning you.
What do you mean?
You know that show Dave Myers is casting?
Oh, that.
I've got a chance for a part in it. 2 sides. Not too good, but not too bad. Oh, anyhow, if the show goes over, it means a steady paycheck.
And do you have a chance for the part?
What do you think?
Well, you are a good comedian. The show is a comedy, isn't it?
Any objections to comedy?
No, I love it.
And you're good at it, too. You're better than I am. I overplay comedy. I'm boisterous. But you're subtle and elegant and quietly gay.
Well, I wish directors thought as much of me as you do.
Why don't you go and see Dave Myers?
Oh,
His shows aren't quite nice enough, I suppose.
Well,
You don't want to hurt my feelings, do you? Well, a steady series of paychecks doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. That's how I feel about it. You can play a Dave Myers part without living it, you know. You've got to be practical, darling. You've got to be practical.
Well, Vera Haynes gets her part in the play and her steady paycheck because the play is a hit. And Claire, round about the same time, appears on television twice, and she gets a part in a radio series. She gets no attention out of it all, but the two girls move into nicer quarters, an apartment. They eat better food now, and they look healthy and happy and, well, young again, gay.
Well, Miss Florrie.
Well, Mr. Haven.
And you, Miss Haynes.
Well, Mr. Haven?
I've had a marvelous evening. Thanks, Vera, for introducing me to Claire, and thanks, Claire, for being interested in this script.
Interested? I can't wait to read it.
And that means you can't wait for me to leave.
Oh, no.
Well, good night.
Good night.
You do want me to leave, don't you?
She's more interested in scripts than in any man alive. Even a man like you, Bob.
Vera, if I didn't know you were interested in the leading man of that show you're in, I could easily be interested in you myself. Good night, sweet lady.
Good night, sweet prince.
Oh, Vera, I envy your leading man. I really do, if that's what you dose him with. Claire, I hope you'll read that script first thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning? You mean first thing tonight?
Vera goes to bed, and Claire, curled up in the armchair, settles down to the script. Bob Haven goes to his club, where he encounters his friend, Claude Allison.
Claude, congratulate me.
I congratulate you.
I've just met the most marvelous girl.
Marvelous girl, did you say?
Well, I mean actress. Actress. A marvelous actress for that script of Tom Strecker's.
You mean Olivia de Havilland, Jane Wyman, Ann Baxter?
No, an unknown.
I thought you were looking for a Hollywood personality.
Brother, I've met a Hollywood and Broadway personality all rolled into one.
Who is she?
Claire Florrie.
Never heard of her.
Oh, you will hear of her.
Oh, of course.
You don't believe me, do you?
I generally believe you, Bob. That's why I invest money in your productions. You have the best judgment in the business.
Well, believe my judgment now.
But who is she, Bob? This Claire, what is it?
Florrie. I saw her one night last week on television, heard her yesterday afternoon on the radio, and then tonight Vera Haynes introduced...
Are you still seeing Vera?
Oh, met her by accident. She's now interested in the leading man of that show of Dave Myers.
Oh, that cheap piece.
Yes, the play is cheap. Myers is cheap. The leading man is cheap.
And Vera is cheap, too.
Well, I'm grateful to her. She introduced me tonight to Claire Florrie. Now, the girl's an artist, Claude. She's an artist.
She's also an unknown.
Well, what of it?
Are you going to take a chance in a play by Tom Strecker with...
With an actress. Yes, a born, bred, beautiful, brilliant actress.
Bob, I hope you're not going overboard.
Oh, not a chance.
You went overboard on Vera Haynes, you know.
Oh, that was personally. This is artistically.
Back in the apartment of Claire and Vera.
Darling. Yes, Vera.
How's the play?
Oh, is the light keeping you awake? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's not the light. I just woke up a little. How is it?
How's what?
The script.
Oh, it's very interesting.
Bob Haven's interesting, too, isn't he?
I suppose so. He's nice. I really didn't pay too much attention to him.
All you were interested in was the script, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and finish it. I'll go back to sleep. I was dreaming about Bob Haven.
Oh? Well, I thought...
He's a leading producer, darling. He's a leading everything.
No mere leading man in a Dave Myers comedy can make me forget him.
It was sweet of you to introduce me to him, Vera.
I was glad to. How is the script?
Well, it's interesting.
Is that all? Isn't it exciting?
I haven't finished it.
After all this time?
Oh, I've been thinking about it as well as reading it.
Don't you think you could play the girl's part?
That's just what I've been thinking about.
What? Claire Flory. A play by Tom Strecker? Why, he's got class, and so have you.
Vera, will you do me a favor?
Of course.
Will you read this play and tell me what you think of it? I want your opinion of it.
Oh, well, you don't want me to read it at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Oh,
do you?
no. Sometime tomorrow.
All right, but if Tom Strecker wrote it and Bob Haven wants to produce it, that's enough opinion for anybody, if you ask me.
The next afternoon.
Hello? Oh, hello, Bob. Fine. I'm just fine, thanks. Oh, no, she's not here. She's working this afternoon. Radio. Well, she read it, Bob. I'm reading it now. She asked me to. Oh, it's gorgeous, Bob. It's Tom Strecker. Nobody writes like Tom. Oh, that dialogue. What dialogue? Oh, yes, and could she do it? It's written for her. That voice of hers and her style, her manner. Oh, no, Bob, I don't know. I can't imagine. She read it. She said nothing about it, absolutely nothing. Then she asked me to read it. That's all I can tell you, Bob. Oh, no. I'm sure it's not that. It's as clean as anything. There isn't a line, there isn't an action that even my grandmother would object to. I wish I could be in something even half as decent. Yes, I'll tell her, Bob. I'll tell her that. She'll like it there. I envy her. Nothing.
What a lovely place.
It is, isn't it? Thanks for meeting me here. I would have called for you at your apartment.
Oh, I know. Vera told me you were busy with Henry Sargent.
Yes, trying to line him up for the part of the father.
Oh. Yes.
To play opposite Claire Flory as his daughter.
Mr. Haven.
Bob,
I can't do it.
What?
It's a fine play, but I can't do it. I mean, technically, it's fine, it's elegant, it's smart, but... Well, I can't do it.
No? That's interesting.
It's all wrong, Bob. It's all wrong. You know it is, don't you?
Tom Strecker's best play all wrong? I don't understand, Claire.
Oh, it's well written, I admit that. I'd be stupid if I didn't. Everything in it is smooth.
Well, Tom has what it takes.
I can only act as well as he can write.
I'm convinced that you can act better than he writes. And when it comes to judging acting, well, I'm the hardest-headed man in New York. Claire, you can act that part. You can act it, I tell you. Say, is that what's bothering you? A sudden spell of humility or something?
Oh, no. I'm so confident about my ability to act that I'm ashamed of myself.
And I'm proud of having discovered you for the legitimate theater.
Oh, the legitimate theater's fine and all that, but I like radio. And I don't mind television.
Television? The theater isn't a class by itself. It's tops. It's the real thing. Audiences right there in front of you. And not just once a week, but night after night. And the matinees. Audiences coming there to see you. Oh, there's nothing in the wide world like it. And, Claire, I want you to have it.
Oh, I want it, all right.
Well, then what
Bob,
is it?
Tom Strecker's play... Well, it's all wrong. All wrong. That's all I can say about it.
All wrong? Why, Vera Haynes says it's clean enough to appear...
Oh, I don't mean that, Bob. It's not dirty, not in the usual sense, but it is dirty, though, in a worse sense.
Claire, what are you trying to say?
Oh, I don't know what it is. The play... Well, it just quietly and smoothly and insidiously makes fun of everything. It makes fun of men. It makes fun of women. It makes fun of life.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. But isn't a playwright, a creative artist like Tom Strecker, isn't he entitled to his point of view?
Bob, that's too deep a question for me. I don't know whether he's entitled to it or not, but I'm not entitled to it. Not to a point of view like that.
Why not?
Well, my conscience, that's all. My conscience revolts at a point of view like that.
Well.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. I don't mean to hurt your feelings or Tom Strecker's.
Claire Florey, I'm beginning to find you more interesting every minute.
You're not angry with me? You're not indignant?
No. No, I'm not indignant. I'm excited. Excited about you. This idea of yours about Tom's play, I'll have to tell Tom all about it.
Oh, no, please don't. I don't like to disagree with people.
But when you do disagree, you keep it quietly but firmly to yourself. Is that it?
I suppose I do. At least in this case, I do. The case of this play. Here, Bob. Here's the script. I'm returning it to you. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity of looking at it.
And the opportunity of playing in it? For $1,000 a week?
For the time being, I'll stick with my little radio show.
Claude, the girl is something.
Well, she's something to look at, I'll agree.
And she's something to know.
In what way?
Oh, her quiet confidence, her determination, her conviction.
Conviction? Since when have you been interested in a girl's conviction?
Oh, I don't mean the convictions themselves. I mean the feeling she puts in back of them. A girl with feeling like that is a girl worth knowing.
A strong feeling and good looks.
Looks? That word is feeble. Beauty, old man. Beauty.
All right, beauty. I congratulate you, as on past occasions, on your taste.
Well, brother, your own tastes aren't bad at all. Rita. Blonde, chilly Rita. She's a beauty herself.
Bob, do you mind if I talk with you about her?
Claude, I don't mind anything. Life is too wonderful and too short to get involved about it. Sure, we'll talk about Rita, but not tonight, Claude. Tonight I have a date with Claire Florey.
A few weeks later.
I wish I could understand you.
Well, as long as you love me, that's enough.
Why should it mean anything to you that I love you? You've got class, and I haven't.
Oh, yes, you have. You have a heart. You have honesty, generosity. Friends like you are few and far between, Vera.
Well, that's how I feel about you, Claire. I'm your friend, and you're mine, but sometimes I don't understand you. You're not practical. Why did you pass up that play of Bob Haven?
You mean that play of Tom Strecker?
Bob Haven's producing it.
Yes, and that's something I don't understand. Bob's so nice, and that play isn't nice.
Are you interested in Bob?
I don't know.
He's interested in you.
So it seems.
Are you pleased?
Yes.
He's certainly taking you out a lot. Does he ever talk with you about the play?
No.
He's going to put it on, you know.
Mm-hmm, with Sally Duvall in the leading part.
Don't you feel even an teensy twinge of regret, huh?
No.
Oh, and that radio show. Folding at the same time you passed up the play.
Well, I'm now on another radio show.
Yeah, but it's only a religious one.
I'm not unhappy about it. A couple of million people listen to that show. It brings comfort and inspiration into their lives.
What does Bob Haven think about it?
I don't discuss his business, and he doesn't discuss mine.
Then what do you discuss?
Oh, silly things. Nothing at all, really. We just talk and laugh and...
And at the back of your mind, you're plotting on reforming him, aren't you?
Reforming him? What do you mean?
About putting on plays like Tom Strecker's. Well, you may not realize it, darling, but you've reformed me.
I what?
I'm quitting that show of Dave Meyer's on Saturday night.
But, oh, Vera, what are you going to do? Afterwards, I mean. You've spent every cent of your money on clothes.
I know, but I'm going home, darling. Back to the old hometown, the high school sweetheart and all that.
Really?
Really.
Oh, but, darling, how nice.
And I've got you to thank for it, Claire.
Oh.
In another minute, I'm going to kiss you for it. Yes, you've set me straight, Claire. Just by being yourself. Just by being what you are. I was almost beginning to go off, but, well,
then why do you blame me for not acting in Bob's play?
Oh, I see nothing wrong in that. I think it's a refined play.
Maybe refined. But a sneer could be refined. And that play is one long sneer. A sneer at everything good in life. Friendship and honor and love and, well, life itself.
I don't see that in it. I suppose I'm not intelligent enough, but if you see it, Claire, well, I admire you. I love you, and now I am going to kiss you.
Oh, Bob. Dearest Bob, I love you.
Claire Flory. You have a beautiful name.
Oh, when you kiss me, Bob, I just float away.
We'll always be like this. Happy together, laughing together.
Oh, yes.
Even though... Look, Claire, I can't break it to you easily, so let me just break it to you. Now, Claire, try to understand. I have a wife. Claude, my friend Claude Allison, loves her. She's a very nice person. She's very beautiful, but, well, I don't love her. Claude does. She and Claude are made for each other just as you and I are. Oh, Claire, you look ill. Is there anything... Oh, you do love me, don't you, Claire?
Yes. Yes, Bob, I do love you.
All right, then. Even if my wife Rita won't divorce me, and I'm not sure that she will, but even if she won't, well, you and I, we can be... Oh, Claire, why don't you smile again? Why do you look as if I slapped you in the face?
3 years later, it is a bright, cold Sunday morning in Hanover City. The congregation in St. Francis of Assisi Church at the High Mass is large. Captain and Mrs. Drakeley are there, and Agnes and George Drakeley, and Patricia and Gerald White, and other people into whose lives we've had a glimpse in this series of stories on modern living. And Father Morgan is there, too. In the congregation is Claire Flory, 3 years older, 3 years more beautiful, home for a visit to her mother and father. A celebrity now, much sought after by producers, and a beauty, much sought after by suitors. But she's still the same Claire, like the people around her in the church, still listening humbly to what Father Morgan is saying.
Blessed, then, are the clean of heart, for they shall see God. God, indeed, is within the clean of heart. He seems to shine out through their eyes. They are men and women, the clean of heart, young and old, who love life, who do not look down on it, who do not take its precious gifts and fling them in the mud. Blessed are they, blessed forever, for they shall see God.
The 7th Beatitude. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Here are some pages Pages from a man's diary, a man's life. The man is a young man, a citizen of Hanover City. His name, Clement Mahaffey.
Here I am at the end of my first day of practice as a lawyer. What I intend to do at the end of each day's work is to write down in this diary those things which, during the course of the day, I can make use of tomorrow, next week, next year. Not trivial things, but important things. Facts and thoughts which will help me to advance in my career. Not my career as a lawyer, but as a maker of money. If I could make more money by being a doctor or a chemical engineer, I'd be a doctor or a chemical engineer. But the law seems to be the way for me. The way to money, the way to influence, the way to power. Money, influence, power. Those are the things men want. Except that so many men are secretive about it or ashamed. Well, here in this diary in which I talk to myself, I'm neither secretive nor ashamed. Money, influence, power. I want them. I really want them. Hello.
Hello, Clem.
Oh, hello, Alice.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. And you?
Oh, wonderful. But I'm lonesome a little. When are you coming home for dinner?
Ooh, in about an hour.
Oh, you're having a long day.
No, it's just a typical day.
Typical? It's only your first day, isn't it? How do you know yet whether it's typical or not?
Alice, I've settled that it's going to be typical. There aren't going to be any short days. They're all going to be long days.
Oh?
It's a case of a man wanting to be small or wanting to be big. Well, we've talked it over a dozen times. If he wants to be big, he's got to do things in a big way. And if he wants to do things in a big way, he isn't going to do them by keeping his eyes on the clock at 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the evening. I'll see you tonight. I'll see you tomorrow night. I'll see you every night at 7:30.
All right, Clem. I'll be seeing you. I love you, Clem.
And I love you, Alice. Let's see now, the diary. At least one page a day. At least one page. Let's see, where was I? Money, influence, power. The most fascinating, the most challenging things in life. The things worth dreaming about, writing about, and achieving.
That was a page from Clement Mahaffey's diary. Now for another page. Not from his diary, but directly from his life.
Oh, Clem. Clem, did you see it?
See what?
The surprise I had for you.
Oh, you mean the new convertible in the garage?
Of course.
Oh, of course I saw it, Alice. It's very nice.
You really like it?
Of course I like it. Oh, I love you, Alice.
And I love you, Clem.
Did you tell the Hanover Motors people that I'm going to turn in the old one?
The who people?
Well, Hanover Motors.
Oh, I didn't get the new one from them.
You what? Well, whom did you get it from?
Mrs. Barry's husband. Well, she's a lovely woman.
Well, that may be so, but her husband means nothing to me. Nothing.
What do you mean, Clem?
I mean that in a business way, Mr. Barry can never... Well, he can never possibly be of any use to me. The Hanover Motors people can.
After dinner that evening, Mahaffey goes back to his office, completes his work on a legal brief, then turns to his diary.
Alice buying that car from George Barry. It's had me upset for the last 3 hours. Oh, she meant well. She means well in everything she does. But meaning well isn't enough. No action in life should be taken without looking at its practical results. And the result of dealing in a business way with George Barry will be nothing. very much upset, very angry. I don't feel like going home tonight at all. Even if I do go home, I know I won't sleep. It's thoughtless of Alice. I don't understand her. It was thoughtless. No.
Hello?
Alice Clem.
Oh, yes, Clem.
I'm going to be at the office sometime yet. You better not wait up for me. In fact, I think after I'm finished, I might as well stay here in town. I can stay at the Hanover Arms Hotel. I'll be working late tonight, and I have to be back here in the office early tomorrow, so I might as well not waste a full hour on transportation back home tonight and back here in the morning.
All right, Clem.
Good night, Alice.
Clem,
What?
are you angry with me about anything?
No.
I mean about the new car.
No. Forget about it.
I'm afraid you sound as if you're not forgetting about it.
Well, I'm busy, Alice. Good night.
Time passes and... Well, shall we look over Clement Mahaffey's shoulder as he writes another page in his diary?
I try to live up to my religion. I keep the commandments. I go to church on Sunday. I give generous donations to the parish. And my wife, Alice, is an angel. She's religious enough for the two of us. Personally, if I took literally everything that Father Morgan preaches about, I'd be so confused that I wouldn't know where I stood. Take his sermon of last Sunday.
Blessed are they who mourn. That means that we must feel sympathy and extend charity to fellow human beings who are in trouble. And it means more. It means that we must feel sympathy for Christ, for God himself, on account of all the sin in the world that makes the world so imperfect. He wants it to be perfect, and sin spoils it. And for our love of him to be complete, we must mourn with him the way he mourned over Jerusalem.
I'm no hypocrite. Mourning with people whose troubles are their own fault, as most troubles really are, that's something I just don't approve of. As for mourning with Christ, mourning over the world's sins and imperfections, that's something for priests and nuns. They have the time for it. We laymen have our livings to make.
Well, Clement Mahaffey made his living, a good living. A man who was ruthless with himself, he put the naked truth about himself down in the pages of his diary. But the mask he presented to the world was a mask of confidence, determination, and smoothness. That was how, for the first 10 years, he got ahead.
You seem to be doing well in that Hamilton case, darling.
What do you know about the Hamilton case?
Oh, I've been reading about it in the papers. Today, I went to the courtroom to listen to you.
You what?
I went to the courtroom to hear you talk. Oh, you were wonderful. I knew you could talk, but I never knew you could talk quite as well as all that.
You flatter me.
I'm telling the straightforward, unprejudiced truth. I only wish the children were old enough to appreciate you.
Don't tell me you'd like to inflict the Hamilton case on them.
It is rather complicated, isn't it?
Today it was all complications. The most legalistic I've ever been up against.
Well, none of them stumped you as far as I could tell.
Alice, I appreciate your interest and encouragement, but I think you'd do better to skip the Hamilton case.
You really do? Well, then, of course, I won't go there again, Clem.
Now, some of these cases can get quite involved and rather nasty at times.
You'd just rather I wasn't there.
That's right, Alice.
I see. I see, Clem.
Yeah, I'll be glad myself when it's over and done with.
Well, this Mr. Hamilton, is he a gentleman?
I'm afraid that for a time today, the testimony didn't make him look like one.
But is he one, Clem? I'm just curious.
Whether he's a gentleman or not, he's my client. It's my job to make him look like a gentleman, at least. He's paying me good money for it, and I'm doing my best to earn it. I wish that Alice could understand that not all life can be perfect, and that not all people can be Alice Mahaffey, and that Clement Mahaffey is interested in any money he can make legally from any client who is able to pay it to him.
Darling, you look tired and worried.
I'm not worried, but I'm tired.
Why don't you treat yourself to a good long rest?
I'm too busy.
Whatever you have to do, why not for a whole month leave it to your partner?
I wouldn't think of it.
Look, dear, the Hamilton case is over, and that work you did for the Cleaver Corporation. And you're tired, Clem. You're fagged out. You owe yourself a rest, a good long rest. A whole month at least.
With everything slipping out of my hands?
Clem, everything's not slipping out of your hands. You're a success, a terrific success.
The Hamilton case, that was big stuff, wasn't it? And the Cleaver Corporation, that was big stuff, too. Well, you know that on my books just now I have nothing but little stuff?
Oh, that's happened before, Clem. The big stuff, as you call it, will come again. Why not get freshened up for it? Get all set for it. It'll come to you, dear. It'll come.
I wonder.
Well, he refused to get freshened up for it. And the big stuff, as he called it, did come to Clement Mahaffey again. And he handled it. He handled all of it with skill, with determination, and with drive. And still, when he has the time, he records it all in his diary.
I can't understand a woman like Miss Macaulay. Here she is, my secretary for 12 years. Well paid. Very well paid. And what happens to her? A nervous breakdown, resignation, unkind words to me, her employer. I'm hard, she says. I'm cruel. I pay her enough money to buy herself and her parents a nice home. Now resignation, feminine tears. Well, Miss Macaulay, goodbye. As far as I'm concerned, you can... Hello.
Clem, Teresa just went to the hospital.
Teresa? Who's Teresa?
Barry, Teresa Barry, my best friend.
Oh, of course.
Oh, don't you think it's awful?
What's the matter with her?
She's dying. I don't know what it is. Something about her blood, her heart or something.
That's too bad.
Clem, you just don't care.
I do care, Alice.
You don't. She's my best friend, and I know you don't.
All right, I don't.
Clem, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm all upset.
Well, if you want to know, so am I upset.
Clem, what's the matter?
If you're so interested in Teresa Barry, why don't you go to the hospital and stay there with her?
What I'm doing is coming right down there to your office and take you home. You're tired, Clem. You're tired, you're nervous, you're exhausted.
Alice, stop talking to me as if I were a child. I'm not coming home. All these pious worries and flutters of yours, I'm sick and tired of them.
Darling, you are nervous. You are exhausted. I'm coming to your office. I want you to come home with me. You will, won't you, Clem? Won't you, Clem?
All right, I'll come home. But don't you come to the office.
All right.
Stay right where you are. I'll get home by myself.
All right. See you later.
Oh, good morning, Alice.
Oh, Father Morgan, it's so good of you to see me.
Well, that's what I'm here for, to see people. And what are you selling, Mrs. Mahaffey? Candlesticks, holy pictures, life insurance?
It all depends on what you're buying, Father. Would you be interested in a bushel of someone's personal troubles?
Sit down, Alice. That's it. Make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
Now tell me, what's the matter? Are you in trouble? You don't look it. You look blooming.
Well, if I am, it's from lack of sleep.
No.
Father, Clem has gone to a psychiatrist.
Really?
Is it wrong, Father? I mean, for a Catholic to go to a psychiatrist?
Well, there are all kinds of psychiatrists, you know. Who's the one Clem's going to?
Dr. Stevenson.
Oh, good man. Good reputation.
Father, I'm so worried.
What's the trouble, Alice? Is Clem cracking up?
How did you know?
Oh, I've chatted with him on the street in town now and then. I haven't liked the look in his eyes. What's he been doing? Overworking?
Yes. And he hasn't had to. I haven't been forcing him to.
No, I'm sure you haven't.
I've been begging him to take it easy.
The law, real estate, the hotel business, politics. He's been branching out, hasn't he?
Yes. But I'm afraid without any roots.
Now, that's an interesting observation.
I mean that sometimes I wonder if he has any religion, Father.
He goes to Mass on Sundays, doesn't he? He receives the sacraments.
I know, but, you know that isn't always everything. I mean, does he love God? Does he love anything?
Well, I never like to discuss people's motives, people's hearts. You never can tell.
You can tell, though, when you talk to the people themselves.
Even then, not always.
Will you talk to Clem, Father? Could you have dinner with us some evening and maybe you and he could have a quiet hour or so in his study?
I'd be glad to, Alice. But let's not make it look too obvious. He might resent it if he knew I took it for granted that he was nervous. Let's think it over. And meanwhile, perhaps Dr. Stevenson will straighten him out. I hope he will.
Pray that he will, Father.
Yes, I will, my dear.
There's something wrong with my Clem. Something seriously wrong.
Hard times come upon Hanover City. 2 long months of near tragedy. A strike takes place in the city's 2 big sheet metal plants. And the local transportation company is struck, too. The long, uninterrupted prosperity of the city is hard hit. Workers have to be careful about spending their savings. Many of them are depending upon relief. And the local shopkeepers are desperate. Well, who's to blame? Management or labor? No one knows. The issues are very complicated. Federal conciliation officials are doing their best, but the strike goes on day after day, week after week. And Hanover City is in the grip of the worst crisis in its history. This particular evening, during the strike, as Clement Mahaffey comes home...
Hello!
Clem, darling. My, oh, my.
Well, why the my, oh, my?
You're looking so well.
I'm feeling better every day.
Oh, Dr. Stevens is doing wonders for you.
Yeah, good man.
And look at all the work you have there. 2 briefcases.
Guess what, Alice?
Is the strike going to be settled?
Good guess. Very good guess.
Thank God.
Take it easy. It isn't settled quite yet. But it's going to be, Alice. It's going to be. I'm going to make the settlement the great accomplishment of my life.
Clem, have they...
The Chamber of Commerce, in agreement with the representatives of management and labor, have asked me to arbitrate the whole business.
Oh, Clem, that's wonderful. So they turned to you.
Oh, they were thinking about that man Shaffrey, too. He's intelligent enough, all right, but he's too quiet. He's almost mousy. I persuaded them that I had a formula and that I had the necessary force of personality. Force. It takes that as well as intelligence, you know.
Force? Personality. Well, you have plenty of that, Clem. Oh, thank God this terrible thing will soon be over.
Well, off to the study. I have to go through all these papers.
It won't... Well, staying up all hours won't affect your health, will it?
Alice, this opportunity is a tonic. A real tonic. It's better than anything Dr. Stevenson could ever do for me.
3 nights later, Clement Mahaffey is in the hospital, a shattered, profoundly wretched, and unhappy man. Without consulting management or labor, the Chamber of Commerce, or the federal conciliators, he consulted only the papers in his briefcases and his own self-confidence. And all on his own, he issued to the newspapers his formula for settling the strike. No one was satisfied with it. It set management against labor, labor against management. There were ugly outbreaks of violence, and people all over the city took their pent-up feelings out on Clement Mahaffey. The would-be peacemaker had proved a troublemaker. And it was 2 more weeks before quiet, patient Clarence Shaffrey could calm the waters and bring about an end to the strike. Clement Mahaffey goes to a sanitarium in the country. There, visited by Alice twice a week, he slowly recovers. Alice talks with him, reads to him, smiles as bravely as she can, and all the while, either in the quiet of St. Francis Church or in the quiet of her heart, she prays. Well, Clement can at last sit up and look out over the mountains and the valleys. One day he's visited by Father Morgan.
No, I don't object to your visit at all, Father. On the contrary.
Oh, Clem, it's good to see you looking so improved.
It need never have happened, Father.
You just overworked yourself, Clem, but don't worry yourself about it.
It wasn't overwork. It was something else. A whole lot of things.
Well, now, Clem, don't reproach yourself.
Look, Father, it's all in this book here, this diary. I asked Alice to get it for me. It was in my office. I asked her not to read it, but just to bring it to me. Well, I've been studying it. It's a picture of myself. A self-portrait. A portrait of myself looking into a mirror and admiring myself. Looking into a mirror of solemn, comical, stinking pride. Would you like to read it, Father? Read it. Then destroy it. Throw it away. Burn it. I'm finished with it. Alice's prayers and this ugly book. They put me onto myself. Would you mind if I went to confession to you, Father? I mean, here and now.
Father Morgan read the book, and then he destroyed it. Then one time when he was a guest preacher far away from Hanover City, he preached a sermon, and the last words of his sermon were these.
If you want to have peace, if you want to confer peace, read the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, it says. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are they who mourn. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after justice, after righteousness, after holiness. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the clean of heart. Only by practicing the first 6 Beatitudes can you practice the 7th. Blessed are the peacemakers. You can't give, you know, what you don't have. But if you practice, and if the world practices, the first 6 Beatitudes, then you will practice the 7th almost without trying. You will have peace in your hearts, and then you will be able to give under God true peace to others.
The 8th Beatitude. Blessed are they that suffer persecution for justice' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. In the 5th story in this series, we met Patricia and Gerald White. The Whites, as we know, practice the spiritual and corporal works of mercy. They're prosperous now. Their farm outside Hanover City is flourishing. Their real estate holdings in the city itself have increased. And Jerry is the political leader in this part of the state. But Pat, his wife, is unable to confine her overwhelming love to their 2 adopted children. She has an idea. She's given the idea much thought and sought much advice about it. And today, we find her acting on it. She is calling on Mr. Stevens Gartner, Hanover City's leading philanthropist.
Come in, Mrs. White. It's so nice to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner.
And how's my friend Gerald these days?
Oh, busy as usual.
Oh, that man has time for everything. Oh, won't you sit down?
Thank you. Mr. Gardner, I've come to see you about...
About you and Jerry turning over your property in Hanover Park to an orphanage or something?
How did you know?
I've heard about it.
Well, we are turning over the property, but not quite to an orphanage. What we have in mind, Mr. Gardner, is a house of the Good Shepherd.
And what might a house of the Good Shepherd be?
Well, you see, Mr. Gardner, in our church, there's an order of nuns called the Sisters of the Good Shepherd. For one thing, being a cloistered order, they spend a great deal of time praying. For another thing, they also look after, well, delinquent girls. Not only Catholic girls, but girls of any faith or no faith at all.
I see.
So many girls get into scrapes because, well, they have no family life, no direction, no love to help them. The Sisters of the Good Shepherd give them direction and love.
Admirable.
Well, Mr. Gardner, Jerry and I are giving the property and some money, but more money is needed. Money and moral support. Some of your money and all of your moral support. That's what I'm after this morning, Mr. Gardner.
Mrs. White, you've come to the point quickly, so let me be just as direct. This idea of yours, I thoroughly and emphatically disapprove of it. Any other idea, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, or non-sectarian, I'd back you up on it. But this, oh, no, I'm sorry, Mrs. White.
Why do you disapprove, Mr. Gardner?
For one very simple reason. Delinquent girls are no fit neighbors in a neighborhood like Hanover Park.
That evening at home...
Jerry?
Yes, Pat?
Do you think my idea is a foolish one?
Well, Father Morgan approves of it. The bishop approves of it.
Yes, but do you?
Well, of course I do, Pat. Go to it. I'm all for you.
The next day, Pat calls on Mrs. James Cagle, a leader of Hanover City Society.
So there it is, Mrs. Cagle. My little idea.
Well, no wonder Stevens Gartner was opposed to it.
Oh.
The very thought of building a house of the Good Shepherd in Hanover Park.
It'll be a beautiful place, Mrs. Cagle. Lincoln Morey will be the architect.
A very fine architect he is.
The grounds will have a wall around them. The whole place will make the park look handsomer than ever.
It's not the appearance of the thing, Mrs. White. It's the thought. Delinquent girls.
Many of those girls become very holy, contemplative nuns. Others get straightened out and they go out into the world and lead useful, happy lives. The Sisters of the Good Shepherd are one of the noblest orders in our church.
And I assure you I admire them, Mrs. White.
Father Morgan approves of the idea. The bishop approves of it. Surely you, Mrs. Cagle, as a generous Catholic...
Mrs. White, if you had an academy in mind, or a high school, or a hospital, you would find me generous, believe me.
But our Lord, Mrs. Cagle, our dear Lord, look how he treated Mary Magdalene.
My dear, our Lord and Mary Magdalene were very special cases. It isn't fair of you to bring them into the conversation. Personally, I would consider myself very uncharitable indeed if I went into Hanover Park leading a troop of delinquent girls and setting them up as neighbors. You're a fine young woman, Patricia White, but this time I really think you're going just a little too far.
Worried about his wife after these first 2 disappointments, Jerry White consults an old friend. He's an old friend of ours, too. We met him several weeks ago. George Drakely. George, as we know, isn't always right, but he generally tries to be right. He's a fine, decent young lawyer.
George, as you know, I'm all for everything that Pat does.
You certainly are, Jerry. You're a great couple.
Well, look, George, I'm not sure that in this particular case Pat is on the right track. Of course, I can't tell her that myself. She'd be terribly disappointed. Well, anyhow, look, you talk to her, will you, George? Think of something, anything.
I'll talk it over with my wife.
No, George, anything but that. Your wife and mine are sisters under the skin as far as charities are concerned. They're practically nuns.
They're two great girls, Jerry. We ought to be proud of them.
Oh, I am. But this house of the Good Shepherd in Hanover Park... I wonder now if I did the right thing telling Pat she could do anything she wanted with our property there.
Mrs. James Cagle and Mr. Stevens Gartner.
Well, isn't there anything we can do about it, Mr. Gartner?
In what way do you mean?
Well, I mean legally. Can't we get an injunction against it or something?
Well, legally, no. There's no zoning law which prohibits the erection of a charitable institution in Hanover Park, as long as the architecture is acceptable to the zoning board.
But, Mr. Gartner, there must be something you can do.
Let's see now. Oh, why, yes. I think there is something we can do.
You know you and I have responsibilities in this city, Mr. Gartner.
But now this may sound harsh, but I think I can take steps to weaken Jerry White's political influence in this part of the state. Or as I say, now that may sound harsh, but we're dealing with two fanatics. And as against those two fanatics, you and I, by reason of our positions here, our standing, do have to think of the welfare of all those splendid people in the neighborhood of Hanover Park. We can't sit idly by and watch the value of their properties go down simply because Patricia White has an idea that she's letting get out of hand.
Now, Pat White and the White's good friend, George Drakely.
Hello there, Pat. I haven't seen you here in town for ages.
Oh, I've been busy all over the place.
So I hear. Look, could we have a bit of lunch here in the hotel?
Might be a bad idea. I'm famished.
Well, let's go in. So, you see, Pat, I'm thinking of you and Jerry.
I know, George. It's sweet of you.
And those two wonderful children you adopted. Now, you don't want them ostracized. I know you don't. Well, then, why not give this idea of yours a little more thought? Why not build this institution you have in mind in some other neighborhood, down in the Foggy Hollow section, say?
Well, I thought of that, George, for a while. I decided against it. For one thing, I don't think it's a healthy neighborhood for girls or any other human being. Another thing, why do we always assume that it's proper to put charitable institutions up in the neighborhoods of the poor? Sometimes I have the feeling that that's practically slapping the poor in the face.
All right, then. Why not put this place up in the country? If you built it there, you wouldn't create any issues at all, Pat. But look at what's happening now. You and Jerry aren't being invited out to dinner, your children aren't being invited to parties, and Jerry's political influence is slipping. It's really slipping, Pat. I know you don't want that to happen. Why not then build this house of the Good Shepherd out in the country?
Well, I'll think it over, George. When a nice, reasonable man like you thinks that perhaps I'm not doing the right thing...
Oh, no, it isn't a question of the right thing, Pat. It's simply a question of going about it in the right way.
Well, I'll think it over, George.
Well, time passes, and Pat finally makes up her mind that the country would be the best place for the new house of the Good Shepherd. She spends a great deal of time corresponding with and visiting Sisters of the Good Shepherd in other cities. She confers with real estate agents and with Lincoln Morey, the architect. Day and night, she works at the plans. And finally, she and Jerry settle tentatively upon a property which looks just about right, about 2 miles from their own house. One night, While all the whites are asleep in their beautiful farmhouse, Pat and Jerry and the two adopted children. Pat is awakened first by the noise, and she hurries into the bedroom of the younger child.
Oh, Jerry! Jerry, hurry, quick! Oh, God. God Almighty. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed. Oh, Jerry! Jerry, please, hurry! Hurry.
Pat, what is it?
Oh, look at the child's head. Someone threw that brick through the window. It hit her on the temple. Oh, look at her. She's unconscious. Hurry, Jerry. Call the doctor.
The doctor comes and ministers to the child, and the child, although suffering a severe cut and a mild concussion, begins to come round. Jerry, meanwhile, has picked up the brick and taken it out of the room. He's in his study now, 6 o'clock in the morning, looking at the brick. A piece of paper is attached to it, and on the paper there is a message. As Jerry reads the message, Pat comes into the room and stands behind him a little, looking over his shoulder.
A place for bad girls is no place for nice farm country like this, with nice people in it.
Nice people who throw bricks through windows.
No, wait, Pat. Let's see what the rest of it says. Take your house of the Good Shepherd back to the city, Mrs. Pat White. And you, Mr. Pat, we thought you had better sense than to let your wife get away with crazy ideas.
Oh, Jerry, I'm getting all of you into trouble.
Oh, there now, Pat, there. My fault just as much as yours.
Fault? Do you mean?
Well, I've been in back of you 100%.
Yes, but haven't you meant it?
Of course I've meant it, Pat. But this brick hitting that child in the head, well, we just can't be fanatical about the thing. We just can't be stubborn about it. The people are all against us.
I wonder, Jerry. I wonder if they all are.
I'll have to rethink the thing all the way through.
You're not giving up on it, are you?
Well, you know I don't give up very easily, Pat. But we've got to be prudent. We've got to be sensible.
Yes, I suppose so.
Oh, darling, you look all shaken up. I'm going to ask the doctor to give you a tonic. You haven't been looking yourself for a long time.
Oh, I'll go and see him in his office sometime.
No. Now that he's here, I'm going to ask him to have a look at you. You don't look right to me at all.
Father Morgan, her pastor, receives a letter from Pat White.
So that's how it is, Father. The doctor tells me I have no more than a year to live. I asked him to be frank with me. So be it. We all have to die. And although I would like to live much longer, his will be done. Jerry doesn't know yet. I'll tell him 6 or 7 months from now. What I want to do, if God wills it, is to get that house of the Good Shepherd started before I die. You tell me it's needed. The bishop tells me it's needed. But so many people have been against it. But if you think I should, with the limited strength left to me, still work at it, I shall spend my last days on earth constructively. Not negatively, not just sitting back. Whatever God wants me to do, I shall do. If you think I am being stubborn about my idea, I shall give it up at once. Respectfully, dear Father Morgan, and sincerely yours, Patricia White.
Soon after that, Father Morgan pays a visit to George Drakely's wife. And just as we have met George, so have we met Agnes Mueller Drakely twice before. Except for not mentioning Pat White's illness, Father Morgan has been laying the whole situation before Agnes.
You see, Agnes, I'm not really sure that too many are opposed to the idea at all.
Well, I don't think so myself, Father. I think it's a thrilling idea.
Yeah, you would.
I know some people in Hanover Park who think so, too.
You do?
Oh, yes.
About how many?
Oh, about 10. 10 families, I'd say.
10 families out of 200 or so. I wonder if 10 is an adequate sampling.
Well, I have the idea that the 10 I know haven't been expressing only their own feelings. My guess is that they represent the feelings of at least 10 more families.
20 out of 200 still isn't a good enough sampling.
No.
I suppose it isn't.
If the majority of people in Hanover Park, or even a large minority, are opposed to a house of the Good Shepherd, I'd say let well enough alone. We'll find some other location to put the place up. But I wonder, Agnes, just consider the kind of place Hanover Park is. Now, the north side, where the Presbyterian church is, that's mainly Presbyterian. And those people are good people. They take a terrific interest in the Big Brothers Club.
Yes, George tells me they do wonderful work.
Then take the east side and the south, a scattering of Catholics, Protestants, and Jews, mostly Catholics and Jews. I wonder, Agnes, I wonder. Maybe too many of us are underestimating those people in Hanover Park.
Oh, they're all very nice people. Lovely people.
Agnes, I'll tell you what I've come to see you about. Could you persuade your husband, George, he's a clever fellow, could you persuade him to sound out the people in Hanover Park?
You always have an idea up your sleeve, Father.
Pat White has spent her whole life doing good. I would like to see this, the biggest thing she's ever taken on. Well, I'd like to see it go through, and go through very soon. Will you talk to George about it?
Well, why don't you talk to him, Father?
Somewhere or other, I've heard that George is against the idea.
And you want me to change his mind?
Not by force, Agnes. By reason, by persuasion, by charm.
Charm? Oh, go along with you. You're buttering me up.
Charm, I said. And more than half in fun, Agnes. The charm of your downright goodness. You and Pat White are two of the finest women I know.
Well, I'll agree with you on Pat, Father.
See what you can do for her, Agnes. See what you can do for Pat.
But, Agnes, darling...
George, you know you can do it.
Please, dear, permit me to finish what I was going to say.
All right.
I was going to say that you're asking me to reverse my field. You know and others know. I advised Pat White to build the place somewhere else. And why?
Well...
Frankly, because I think it would affect property values in Hanover Park. That wouldn't be fair, would it?
But...
Building a house of the Good Shepherd, wonderful. But destroying property values, not so wonderful. It wouldn't be fair, Agnes. It just wouldn't be fair.
Of course it wouldn't be fair.
Then what? Why are you...
George, all I'm suggesting is that we find out the facts. You always guide yourself by facts, don't you?
Oh, I try to.
Well, that's all I mean. Find out the facts about the people in Hanover Park. Are they or are they not opposed to the idea?
Why do you always leave these ticklish, delicate problems up to me?
Because you're so good at them, George. So discreet. So nice.
All right. Well, you might think, though, I didn't need any rest in the evenings after a hard day at the office.
Rest? A big, strong man like you?
I'm not big.
You're strong, though.
Oh, all right.
One night, a week later, tired, really tired, after a hard day at the office, George Drakely has been going the rounds of Hanover Park. He's been to 5 houses, and now, walking along the sidewalk from one house to the next, he sees approaching him under the lamplight a tall, beautiful, well-dressed woman.
Oh.
Pat, I knew it was you. I wasn't sure.
Oh, somehow I knew you were you, George. Even in the darkness, you can sort of tell people by the way they walk. Oh, put your hat on. It's cold tonight.
What are you doing here, Pat?
Well, George, I'm calling on different people here in Hanover Park. I just wanted to make sure whether or not they really were opposed to a house of the Good Shepherd.
Pat White, I take my hat off to you again.
Put it on, put it on. Oh, it's really cold tonight. What are you doing in Hanover Park?
The same thing you are.
George, really?
Well, it was Agnes's idea.
You two dear, wonderful people.
Oh, I don't know about me. I'm afraid I let you down once, Pat. I was one of the people against you.
Oh, it's not a case of being for or against me. It's the principle, George, the necessity, the real need. What are you finding out? What reaction are you getting?
On the whole, a good one.
Me too, George. Isn't it wonderful?
Mr. and Mrs. Cousins just told me that if the plan went through, they'd chip in $500. They said God's blessing would be on the neighborhood if it did go through.
God bless them. And you know what Mr. Martin just said to me? He said he'd donate $200 on the grounds that a handsome set of buildings and a handsome wall on the west side of the park would be a permanent real estate asset.
Splendid. Hey, look, your teeth are chattering. Where's your car?
Oh, over there on the north side.
Well, I'll walk you to it. Let's walk fast and get warmed up. How are Jerry and the children?
They're just fine. How are Agnes and your children?
Well, except for the boys having the sniffles, everybody's tops. Oh, Pat, did you trip on something? Let me help you up.
Oh, get Father Morgan for me, George. Get my husband for me. Get Jerry for me, please.
I'm going to get you to the hospital first.
Get Father Morgan. Get Jerry.
Each at one side of her bed, Jerry and Father Morgan are sitting alongside Pat.
Now you know, Jerry. The doctor told you, didn't he?
Yes.
I'll be leaving the children to a good father.
Pat, I'm sorry to God Almighty I ever wavered on your plan for a house of the Good Shepherd.
That's all right, Jerry. If you reproach yourself, that'll only make Pat feel bad.
Yes. Don't reproach yourself, darling. Who's putting up all the property? Who's putting up so much of the money?
Who's putting up her life? Oh, you wore yourself out doing good, Pat. You suffered persecution for it.
I don't mind. I don't mind anything. My life's been happy. I had a happy childhood with my father and mother. I had a happy womanhood with my husband. There are girls who aren't having happiness. I want them to have it. They do have a little. They might come to believe in God. They might come to love him.
Father Morgan, at the end of this series of stories on the Beatitudes, could you favor us with a few reflections, a few thoughts?
The Beatitudes are the heart of real practical religion. They're the essential spirit of Christianity. Our Lord himself, told us what they were in the Sermon on the Mount. And thank God, people practice them. They call for willpower, the Beatitudes. Willpower and the grace of God. But if we practice them, they return a rich reward. In this life often, and in the next life always. Let's go over them just once. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the land.
Blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the land.
Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted.
Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted.
Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after justice, for they shall have their fill.
Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after justice, for they shall have their fill.
Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy.
Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy.
Blessed are the clean of heart, for they shall see God.
Blessed are the clean of heart, for they shall see God.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God.
Blessed are they who suffer persecution for justice' sake.
Blessed are they who suffer persecution for justice' sake.
For theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
For theirs is